Greetings, programs. Welcome to Hydaelyn's Heroes, the Final Fantasy XIV podcast where, whether you're a warrior of light or a warrior of darkness, all are welcome on the star we call home. We have spoilers. Spoilers. We're going to talk about story, MSQ, raid, other side story shenanigans. It's all good. And we have a special guest with us here today, but we'll get to him first. I want to first introduce my normal co-host, the Quad Father himself, the General Grievous to my Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mr. Piers Harvey. What you doing, sir? And he's muted. Ha ha.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm here. I had to press a button. All right. Don't worry about it. We're professionals here.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. Excited to talk about some spoilers with you. So I think it's going to be a really good time. So that's where I'm at right now.
And we're a little hyped up after last night.
Yeah, very hype. Yeah, we were able to get through the first Savage fight of the tier, which is really great. So, especially with it being a little bit more challenging than last tier. So, definitely excited about that, and definitely something we can go into later. But yeah, feeling that hype, bro. Still riding it.
All right. Sure. And as I said, we're gonna have a special guest here to introduce him. He's one of my favorite artists, and he's had an off again, on again relationship with Final Fantasy XIV and WoW, and going back and forth. And you know, I'm thinking maybe 14 has gripped him to stay for the majority of the time. Mr. Sir Onion Knight, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. Just hanging in there. Enjoying my brand new apartment here. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. Is that your regular digs? You got torches in the back where you live.
Oh yeah, see, and even got the horse font. So it's like you gotta make yourself live at home a little bit here, even if you can't get the actual housing in Ishgard.
Absolutely. So yeah, first time on this show. Tell us a little about yourself and your relationship and your history with Final Fantasy XIV, man.
Okay, well, so I did start out as like at the launch of A Realm Reborn. But I only got up to about level 30, I think, on a thaumaturge, because I found out that I had to level up a shooty boy, so that way I could actually become a black mage. And I was like, well, you know what? This is going really slow. I don't really want to do this. So I just went back to World of Warcraft, and it's been like that for like years.
Yeah, that was the relic of like Final Fantasy 11 days, where you had, if you wanted to dual spec, you get the most out of your character, you had a main job and a secondary job, so they kind of brought a little bit of that into 14, and not a lot of people liked it. I'm glad they changed it.
Yeah, I'm super happy with the changes that they've made over the years, and I don't know, I think once they started introducing the changes, like being able to fly around in
that was awesome.
In the Realm Reborn content, I was like, well, you know what? I think I could actually give this a shot a little bit more. So a little bit before, like a few months before the mass WoW exodus happened, I actually jumped back in and gave it a shot. And I was still jumping back and forth between games for a little bit, but I think my primary game lately has been Final Fantasy at this point.
Because, Island Sanctuary has you hooked, right? That's the main draw,
God,
right?
I think I just barely hit rank 7 today.
Awesome stuff. But yeah, we're here to talk about story. But we also want to get topics from you folks out there. So if you ever want to send us an email over to tarkothgaming@gmail.com, send us a comment or a question, and you could be part of a show of Hydaelyn's Heroes in the future and be part of our main quest. All right, with that info dump out of the way, let's start with main quest number 1. All right, gents, it's been over a week. Is it about time to talk about story spoilers? Need to know what you all think about where the story is headed, 4 Fiends impressions, and a 0 Tark's new girlfriend. All right. You laugh about that, Onion. Go ahead. Go ahead and tell the people why you're laughing about, 0 being Tark's girlfriend.
Well, see, the other night, a friend and I had a slight argument about whose girlfriend it actually was, because there's a third contender for a partner for Zero. And so I had to really put my foot down and say, you know what? No, because I was the last person to speak with Zero. And at this point, Zero seems to really dig me. So I walked around Radz&Han and actually started talking to some of the NPCs around there.
Lord have
And,
mercy.
they were giving me some good information because they saw me have a very passionate kiss with,
Jesus Christ.
And, everybody seems to agree, that it was really hot, and they seem to really think it was a good match. Even Emmett Selk thinks that there's some sort of match, but he's actually suggesting that I share, apparently, and I'm not really down with that.
Yeah. I'm thinking, though, that it's a matter of she just wants to get close to you to devour your aether, and that she's actually my girlfriend and wants an actual relationship with me. Piers, what do you feel about the new girl?
It sucks that you guys think she's your girlfriend because she's actually mine. She's a little, she's from a different world.
Winnie,
Right,
I'm so sorry.
She doesn't know how this works yet, but she's actually mine, and she's just kind of, she's being nice to you guys. All right, that's just what. But no.
Wow, she's a player. She's straight up playing. She's playing all of us.
I like Zero a lot as a character. I think she's really great. But you guys can have her because I do actually have a girl.
Okay.
So
All right.
It's okay.
LOL.
Tark will share like 2 days out of the week, 3 days out of the week, stuff like that.
I will say that she's not at the top of my list yet. It all depends on how Square develops her and brings her up, learning and growing as a character, because we just got introduced. I still have, 9 years of Y'shtola and her growth as a character and just how awesome she is. So she's still number one as best girl in my book. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that. But let's get into the meat of the story. Let's start at the beginning. We knew we were going to the 13th. We had a little bit of a surprise. Maybe it was not a surprise to you guys. It was a surprise to me. But Varshan, to start this expedition, he got new threads, man. He's looking pretty snappy.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't just get new threads. The man got new flesh. So, that's pretty cool for sure.
It's all. It's just all new clothing, quote unquote clothing for Vitra, and to go out into the wild. So, I was like, sweet, he's got a new body. He went from little boy to young strapping man. What do you think about it?
If there's anything I know about the internet, the first thing I saw when he had a new body was there was going to be some Rule 34 and fanfic come out. So
not even close yet, for sure.
Oh my goodness!
Immediately.
But yeah, so that was really cool. And that allowed him to be part of the duty support, the initial story trust. And when I saw that he was part of that duty support, I was all aboard of doing that the first time around instead of doing it as a regular dungeon. So, did you guys do that, or did we? Was I the only one?
I was going through the story with somebody else, with Winnie. Okay. I ended up doing the dungeon with her. I did express a lot of interest in actually doing the dungeon with Truss, but when he was like, yeah, go for it, and I was like, nah, I'll do it with you because we are doing this together, so we'll just we'll stay as a team. But I did actually want to do that. It's something I'm probably going to do down the line because just having Varshan as a new character altogether, just seeing what he would say and do in this dungeon, I think would be really interesting. So it's something I'm probably going to do in the future. But no, for my first run, I did it with players. So,
and if you went down Piers' path and you did it with other players and stuff, to do the story version with the story characters, you want to do it under duty support, not under trust. Trust is the leveling component. So duty support is the story component. Onion, did you do the duty support or did you do with other players?
First time I go through a dungeon these days, I go through with with your Scion buddies and everything. Because at that point, it's new content. I don't want to make a fool of myself as I'm tanking these and everything.
Sure.
So especially at that point, because I was like, okay, I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit tougher than the other stuff, especially since I had to gear up to be able to get into it still.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't quite have all the gear to even do the the final trial at that point, even because I didn't like keep grinding Troya. But I went through with the with the trusts, and admittedly some of it I did miss, like some of the dialogue and everything, because I was looking at the surroundings and I was just like, oh my god, this is just amazing.
It was absolutely a good looking dungeon. The reflective black pools on the wall, the portrait, and they talked a little bit about the portrait, it maybe being the lady of the castle, and then the entire outside environment and seeing the horizon was just like, oh, so good.
Oh, I loved the fact that like all the like architecture and everything was warped and everything. That just looked amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. It did really good with the art and the aesthetic of the dungeon. Did anybody else love the Final Fantasy IV vibes throughout, especially the Troya music theme?
It's been a long time since I've played 4, so I couldn't tell you exactly what Troya is from 4, but obviously I did recognize the music, and I mean, the final boss is incredible and very Final Fantasy IV thematic, from the music down to the fight itself. I really enjoyed. So yeah, I mean, I was feeling the 4 vibes, but probably not as much as you, Tark, being a Final Fantasy IV fanboy. So
it's #1 Final Fantasy of all time. #1. Of course, it was my first, so
of course, you're always gonna love your first. Yeah, for sure.
You always love your first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably one of those weirdos that has never played 4.
Oh my goodness, dude!
Yeah,
buy it on Steam.
See, the problem for me was, though, growing up, like I didn't really get very many video games. So, like my only Final Fantasy game I had growing up was Mystic Quest.
Oh yeah,
and
dude,
and like my favorite RPG of all time is Super Mario RPG. So,
well, I mean, how can you go wrong with that?
for sure.
That's another Square title.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
it is.
That.
Yeah.
But then there was also I don't even remember the name. I'm not even gonna try butchering it. But at this point, like there was only like a couple RPGs that I played growing up. So like it wasn't until I like Final Fantasy VII that I actually really got into the Final Fantasy series. So I think that's kind of common with a lot of people though. So I don't feel like too ashamed, I guess. But I do plan on playing them. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Get them on Steam. If you have to pick like 1 or 2, 4 and 6. Definitely do 4 and 6 with the Pixel remasters. They're so good. Both.
Well, I do have a Retron, so I'd probably just play it emulated on that thing for a little bit. Yeah.
All right. So the big bad boss of the dungeon, which is part of the MSQ, Scarmiglione. You know, you got to put the right Italian on there. I'm so used to Scarmiglione. I have to like check myself. Scarmiglione. The G is silent. God, what a awesome boss. I love that the Four Fiends, like we guessed that the Four Fiends, you know, when we saw, you know, previous cutscenes and everything. I got Four Fiends. And the boss music is sick. And then we have the single player instance, which is, this seems like overwhelming and daunting. Like, how are we going to stop this? I mean, they just keep coming back. When is this going to end? And then our girl Zero just wreck shop.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we kind of called that Scarmiglione was going to be the final boss of this dungeon, and we kind of like what they did with the four lords, right? Where Genbu was the final boss of Hellskeer, and we didn't end up having to fight him as a trial. We did maybe think that, you know, Scarmiglione being kind of like a zombie kind of guy, right, would come back into the extreme trial, and we would have to fight like a second form of him. That's not exactly what ended up happening. But at least we did get to fight him again in that solo instance, which was a lot of fun. And we did get to kind of see in real time Zero's power of being able to turn Void Scent into crystal, which is apparently this skill that is something that is from way back before the 13th fell to darkness. Some sort of ability that they were able to use. that Zero might be the only one who has that power left. So obviously, being able to have her as support, because we weren't going to beat Scarmiglione without her, right? He was just bringing back his friends, but time after time after time, because that's his ability, right? He is able to like zombify or like revive the Void Scent instantly. Where the Void Scent can revive themselves over time, he can do it like in a snap, right? So we had to use Zero's ability, which is actually kind of funny if you have any sort of third-party tool, which we don't endorse here on this tool on this podcast at all. But if you do have that, like an ACT of some sort, you'll see that Zero is actually doing a massive amount of damage to these. She's just one-shotting them with actual damage and then turning them into crystal.
Nice.
Because I think one of our raid members, Fuji, had that and was like, "Man, Zero needs to like chill with his DPS. Like, damn." But I thought that was pretty funny. But I really enjoyed that solo instance, and just overall the experience with Scarmiglione I think was done really well. So
to go back though to Zero, let's go back a little bit, because we had the walkthrough of the dungeon after we beat the dungeon to find this clever Void Scent down in the dungeon that was captured.
True. Yeah,
and we come across Xenos's avatar. And we're like, we saw this in the cutscene for the trailer, and we're like, okay, there's going to be something that happens here. Maybe this new person that's also in the trailer is going to come and interact with this avatar and maybe bind the avatar to her, and she becomes like a true Reaper. A little twist for me is that we use the crystal of light that Y'shtola gave us, or it just activates, and the avatar is Zero. Which like totally threw me for a second. I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's cool. I like that turn. Onion, what did you think about that little story beat, that little twist, if you will?
Okay, so like I'm always horny on main. So as soon as that happened, I was just like, okay, new mommy, let's do this. But no, I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, and I actually was reading somewhere online, I think earlier today when I was trying to refamiliarize myself. Apparently, if you go through there as Reaper, there's some more dialogue stuff. So I'm gonna have to go back through there again.
Did you do it as Reaper, Piers?
So I didn't start it as Reaper, and then I thought throughout doing it, I was like, I wonder if I would get a little bit of bonus dialogue if I was Reaper, and I'd switch to it. And I might have missed some of the earlier stuff, but I did get some of the later stuff, some of the extra bonus stuff when it comes to Reaper. So we can discuss that later if you'd like, because I think it comes like later on.
Okay.
With Zero, but yeah. So.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Onion, you were saying.
Oh no, it's good. It's good because I'm interested in it because I didn't like actually look into like what the dialogue or anything like that was going to be. So I'm down to hear about this because I'm going to end up doing it again myself through the New Game Plus. But I'm just like, yeah, let's hear this. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. Like, and of course, knowing a little bit more now after doing something else we're going to talk about later, it's got my brain kind of going. Like I'm trying to like wrap my head around it, like, and like I guess everybody else knew that this was like Xenos avatar that was down there. I personally was like, well, what if it's Xenos? What if he merged with his avatar and became this thing? What if we're getting Xenos back somehow? And then suddenly, as soon as we see Zero pop up, I'm like, oh, okay, what's this? So I thought the whole little section was pretty cool. It was a nice little subversion of my expectations, at least. So
I just hope that this puts to bed that Xenos is gone and done, and we don't ever have to talk about him again. Right?
I like Xenos, so...
I like Xenos a lot, too. He ended up becoming one of my favorite characters, especially at the end. Tark knows I'm a sucker for anti-heroes, and like I just kind of love when villains kind of see the error of their ways and kind of help you in the end. So I'm definitely a sucker for that story beat. But I think that Xenos is done. I think he's actually dead. I think he it's too integral to the story to just bring him back. Like I think him dying is supposed to be like, it's the end of Endwalker. It's the end, right? I think that is too thematic to just snap him back into existence. So, but no, I definitely feel you on Xenos. But But yeah, I'm glad to see that they didn't do that, and I'm glad to see that this avatar, even if it was a little bit MacGuffin, that we just were handed this Hydaelyn crystal, and we're just like, hey, take this because it might guide your way or something in the 13th, and we're like, all right, I guess
Thanks,
we'll take it.
Yustola.
And so we take it, and like it just magically fixes Zero. Who there's a reason why she is the way that she is, because I guess we can kind of discuss it now. We can go into it a little bit later, but that she's half human, right? She's not full on void sent. She was like kind of Sephiroth into existence, right? Where Sephiroth was given Genova cells in the womb of Lucretia. Spoilers, I guess. Kind of the same thing happened with Zero, where she was like given darkness while she was in the womb, and so she's kind of half human, half void sent. And so when we had that crystal, we were able to kind of purge her of that darkness and bring back that humanity that she had. That's kind of why we were able to restore her from being the avatar of Xenos. So I think that is a little MacGuffin that we were just given that crystal, but it works for what it is. I mean, it's a story, and I'm down with it. Yeah, I really like that that whole interaction we had with Zero, and we kind of knew it was coming from the trailer that we were given, but it was really cool to see it in action. So
I love
totally MacGuffin.
Totally. Yeah. But sometimes you're just like, you know what? Let's just put it in here so we can move the story forward.
Yeah.
We only got 9 quests. We gotta move forward. We gotta go. I do love the questions about, are you friend? Are you friend? Xenos called you friend. What is friend? Like, she's just so naive and so like not knowing of anything outside of the world of the 13th. That all she knows is survive and devour to survive. It's just the way of the world, making pacts, making bargains. She's like a newborn babe. And when we bring her back, again, getting ahead of myself, when we bring her out of the 13th back to the source, she's like, like, I don't know what's going on. She's a little outside of herself. So I love the blank canvas that she is, and they can go so many different ways with her. I think it's going to be a good path, considering the company she's keeping now. But that, and knowing that she's been around for ages, because she's got this power from that last big word, the Contra Memoria, and she's basically the last of the Memoriates that has this power to crystallize void sent, or basically any being. I would assume. It doesn't have to be void sent, I don't think, right?
I mean, this technique was used back before the 13th fell. This was a technique that was used by the people of the 13th to combat primals, right? So the primals were a big thing on the 13th.
Eidolons,
before it fell. They called them Eidolons. So I find that very interesting too. But they called them Eidolons, and they had no way to really combat them. The Ascians were doing their thing where they were teaching beast tribes and whoever else had to summon primals, and they were really kind of wrecking havoc on the 13th. And so these Memoriates were basically brought into existence to combat them and seal their ether into crystal. And so that's what Zero's able to do with the Void Scent. So really interesting.
And to kind of add on to that too, I know you're talking about she's like kind of the last of the Memoriates, but again, kind of pointing at something that we're probably going to talk about later. They're indicating at some point that the Memoriates were turned into Void Scent, the more powerful Void Scent.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say that they couldn't be turned back into their mortal form and continue to do the Memoriate, tasks, basically.
Maybe help reclaim the 13th down the road.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Yeah. And again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but we saw a little side story that really, because I thought, okay, maybe Scarmiglione and Barbaricia are Memoriates as well, but we find out later that they're not. But yeah, I love the metaphysics in this game, how they dealt out the ins and outs of how things work in this universe, and how Y'shtola, realized, so nothing here can die because it's so active in the aether, and maybe it takes a little while for you to reform unless you're actually devoured, whereas opposed to on the first, it's enveloped in light and stasis, so nothing can be born. Again, showing they're really sticking to the metaphysics of this universe, and and applying it to the desperate different locations that we're at. God, I love it when they stick to it. I've heard so many different things about World of Warcraft and how they retcon things here and there with every single expansion. It's nice that they're keeping things uniform. It really shows me that they literally have like 6, 7, 8, 10-year plan for their story. It's incredible.
And, even if they don't have a long plan like that, they're finding ways to make things fit just right.
Sure.
Like they're not like pulling things out of the air and be like, well, now we got to change this. They're literally going in and being like, okay, so we did this in the past. Let's not forget about this. How do we make that connect? So that could also be another thing too, but I wouldn't doubt it if they've got like a 10-year plan or something like that.
Piers, what do you think?
It's I'm just interested to see where the story goes. It's really actually pretty fascinating that if you go talk to, so I don't know if you guys have done the side quest with Unakalhai and Ciela,
Not yet.
the two people from the 13th.
Not
If you
yet.
actually go talk to them, they will comment, at least Unakalhai will comment on how you journey to the 13th and how it's interesting that you guys created an Atomos to go there, and he wishes he could come with us and stuff. So I hope we get to see some Zero interact with these characters, because the
fellow
13th
members of the
come together.
13th. Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
It's the metaphysics of everything. I mean, the fact that they put, their world in 2 awesome books here. Encyclopedia Eorzea 1 and 2. Hopefully 3 comes out soon.
I hope so. Yeah.
It really, I've done some light reading. I've done some light reading. These are easy, reading books. Nothing too heavy.
Sure.
I can't really remember a time when they've really retconned anything. The only thing I could really think of is when Urian J tells us, and when he's explaining the astral and umbral, that on the source we actually got it backwards. The umbral is the active and the astral is the passive. That's the only thing I could think that I saw that retconned it, but it more or less they did it in a really good way. Like being a WoW background, Onion, how do you feel about how they've done retconning and adjusting on the fly?
So first, before I dive into that, I just want to point out that comment about when Yuri, I still mess his name up all the time.
Urian J, yes.
Yeah, Urian J. Okay, so when stories go and do something like that, I fully love retcons like that because it kind of lends itself to our reality too, because there's a lot of science and everything that we think we understand. And things are constantly changing. We're always learning new things that may, in a way that Mike Byrne hates to hear, it's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, so it's like, every time something like that happens, I fully expect a story to be able to embrace that ability to make changes based on that type of aspect alone. As far as World of Warcraft, The problem with the retcons in that game is they do a lot of weird. They've opened themselves up the ability to do those retcons because they've got all these different like dragon flights and stuff, and one of them just happens to be time based, and they can go back in time and make changes here and there. So it makes sense, but I hate that kind of storytelling because it's like it feels sloppy to me. It feels like you're going out and you're doing all this stuff only to find out later on, oh, well, we really didn't want that to happen, and we need to make this fit with the current story that we're going. So we're just going to send you back in time and help yourself out doing this thing and stuff. And you're just like, oh, okay, well, that feels like that was a waste of time eventually. And then, of course, they had their books released that kind of went back and changed some of the story as well. They tried to go the route of, humans not understanding the history all that well and all that, and they're only going by hearsay. But it just felt kind of hastily written. Whereas, situations like this in Final Fantasy happen so infrequently that it doesn't feel like they're trying to just rush to jumble a story together. So it's all about the approach, really. And if you can get the approach right, then it's solid.
Absolutely. And maybe that's one of the things that I appreciate about Final Fantasy 14 is that most of the story is in the game, and you're not having to go out to 20 different books to get the full meat of the story if you wanted to go deep dive on lore.
And on to that point, I'm not like opposed to that really, because I mean they're in a let's just put it this way.
I'm going to interrupt you on that, but because like Final Fantasy 15,
I knew you were going to talk about the thing. Yeah.
if you wanted the whole story on 15, you had to do the movie, you had to do the anime, you had to do I think there was a comic, along with the stuff in the game.
Video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it was asinine, the way that they force you to shell out money for all these different forms of media. We're like, no, I just want to play the game and get the story from the game. That's why I'm playing the game. But okay, go. But you go back.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Like I'm probably like one of the small number of people that really doesn't mind having extra, material outside of the game, because I understand that World of Warcraft was built without all of this stuff in mind. It didn't have story really in mind. It was built as you read the dialogue in the text box and the chat, and then you go out and do the things, and that's it. They didn't have animations built into it and everything for the longest time. Voice acting, yeah. So that's not something that really bothers me so much. But there is the problem with some of that storytelling these days is they've built some of that into it. So now there's really no excuse to not have that. And unfortunately, they've also got numerous writers that write for their books. And some of the stories just, I guess, maybe the teams don't work 100% together. Maybe there's like some sort of confusion between writer and staff. And I know that they take their lore seriously. Like they've got people that manage the lore and, tell these writers, hey, this is the direction we're going. We need to kind of steer it in that direction. But it just feels like, it's just still disjointed. So having the story told in game is always going to be a net positive, but I don't think it's necessarily so bad to have some external content to enjoy when you're just not on the computer or not on your PlayStation or whatever. So it's not like a huge problem for me.
Piers?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think it all comes down to, it's especially for a game like Final Fantasy 15, if you want to use that as an example, right, which is a really good example to use. I think there is a fine line between how much your understanding of the game and the lore and the story is based on that supplemental material that you have to read and interact with to really get an understanding of that story. For 15, I mean, you have to watch the movie Kingsglaive to even see the death of Noctis's dad, whose name escapes me right now, but like that's such a huge part of that game's lore.
Regis,
that Regis, yes, if you don't watch that movie, you will not see Regis die, right? You will not see Lunafreya get the ring of the Lucii from Regis, and that ring is like the base of the entire story. Like that ring getting to Noctis is massive, right? So that having to interact with that supplemental material to even understand like why these characters are doing what they're doing, or how they get to where there's where they are in the game, it really goes a long way to the appreciation of the story, right? Like you should be able to interact with all that in the game itself and not have to do that supplemental stuff. But I think that having outside stuff, like I think Final Fantasy 14 has done a really good job. I think that the Encyclopedia Eorzeas are a good way to appreciate the lore more and to get little tidbits that might not be in the game, but increase your appreciation of the game and don't diminish, what you don't have to read that stuff to really get a lot out of 14 story, right? Where for 15 you had to really interact with all that stuff. So as someone who hasn't played like WoW at all and who really has a cursory knowledge of the of the story and the lore. I can't really comment on that, but I do understand as player that there are players like you guys who don't really appreciate all that stuff. But I think 14 has done enough, and going back even to like the time travel stuff. There is time travel in 14, but it is used sparingly enough to where it doesn't feel cheap. And I think it was the Warlords of Draenor, which was the time travel one.
My
I
God.
think. And that was a whole like weird thing
They
that you guys
changed
had
the
to deal
entire
with.
timeline with that. That was the problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't even go back in time to your past. It was a different alternate universe anyway. So it's just it was a mess.
Yeah, it's so like for at least Final Fantasy, like there was the Alexander storyline which had to do with time travel, but that was self-contained and like you got to see yourself in the final battle against Alexander. You got to see you save yourself from getting hit by that laser, which was cool, but that was like a little tiny thing, like, oh, that's cool. And then obviously with the Shadowbringers thing, the whole the future of the source going completely to shit and them having to send back the Crystal Tower to the First to kind of save the world like that. There are a little bit of weirdness you can go with that, but it's not done enough to where it really feels like it detracts from the story. So I think 14 is skirting that line enough to where it doesn't feel like it's cheap. But that's where I'm at with at least all that. So
Well, that's the end of side tangent number 1.
Yeah, we did go on a huge side tangent, but it's good. It's good to have these conversations. It feels having at least just even having a third person makes the conversations feel a lot more lively and interesting. So
it's natural.
Yeah.
Natural, yeah, it's a party. So let's get back on track here. So we free Zero. We're going back through the dungeon, and we kind of want Zero's help because we need a guide in this world. We know nothing about the 13th. We're just trying to navigate so we can save Azdaja and then get the heck out. But Zero doesn't necessarily just want to help because that's not how this world works. She doesn't know what helping out of the kindness of your heart is, or for just doing the right thing. It's all about, consuming and surviving and becoming the strongest in this desperate and desolate world. So unfortunately Y'shtola makes a bargain with Zero that she would help us in exchange for Aether. Now, at first I'm thinking, no, anybody but Y'shtola, okay, she's got enough Aether problems as it is. Like, she's using Aether constantly to maintain her sight. Like, can it be someone other than Y'shtola? And then it also, like, because I love Y'shtola and Zero's really growing on me, I'm like, oh, well, there's a little Y'shtola now in Zero, so that elevates her, right? No?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I guess you're combining your two favorite characters.
Yes.
So if you want to make a Zero Stola, then be my guest. I'm
Zero
sure there's
Stola,
fan art out there.
ship them. There's a fanfic right there.
Sure, dude. Be my guest.
Ship it.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about the bargain and how that whole deal works?
Well, it's interesting because that's one of the only Reaper specific things that I think I got, and we can discuss it. But basically, she's asking you like, well, how do I know that you're not going to just like do what Xenos did to me, right? Like, how do I know you're just not going to use me for my power? And one of the things you can say back to her is, I would never enslave you against your will. It's one of the things. And then if you're a Reaper, she'll say to you, yeah, I can see that your avatar is not enslaved. They have a pact with you, right? Mm-hmm. You're not using them against their will. So in that sense, that I can understand why you wouldn't use me against my will. And I thought that was really cool to see that there was that Reaper specific dialogue. Like that little void scent you summon as a Reaper, they're helping you out of the goodness of their heart, right? You're not enslaving them. There's like a
mutual beneficial.
It's a mutual beneficial thing going on, right? So I really enjoyed that. So, but no, I mean, yeah, if you the 13th has got its own set of rules, man. Like everybody there has to use ether to survive, right? They have to give and take from each other, and it's gotten to the point where no one in the 13th will do anything for each other unless there's something to benefit them in return. They have to have that give and take, man. Like they're not just going to do something for you out of the goodness. They're good. They have to get something back from you, whether it be ether or any number of things. Whether so I think that's really cool. How it's so much different than any of the other places we've been in 14, right? How interesting that is. And of course, when you were talking about the Y'shtola thing, anybody but Y'shtola, it's not just that. It's the point where there was that comment from Matoya saying that like this ether thing is going to weigh on her enough to where it might actually be killing her, right?
Yeah.
Her whole traveling to the life stream and bringing her back all these times has really diminished her ether. But there are also other theories to where it's not killing Y'shtola per se, but it's just like weighing on her more than everybody else, right? See, she just interacts with ether differently than we do, and it's really taking a toll on her. Maybe not lethally per se. I don't think Y'shtola would offer her ether to Zero if it was something that was like terminal, if it was lethal to her. So maybe that theory where it's not exactly that dangerous for her to be expending that ether. Hopefully that's the right thing, because nobody wants to see Y'shtola. I'm not as obsessed with her as you are, Tark, but I do like Y'shtola as a character, so I don't want to see her go. But I mean, I guess we could have given her ether. There's no reason why we couldn't have. Maybe Estinian's got that dragon shit. Like maybe his ether's tainted by Nidhogg or something still. And obviously, Varshan can't give him because he's not there personally. It's just his avatar is there. And even Varshan was like, "Hey, if you come back to the source with us, I'll give you some of my power." Right?
Yeah.
Like Vitra said that, and so there is that, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Y'shtola being a hero, giving her ether, thumbs up, I guess. So, whatever. I don't know why we couldn't have given it, but hey, that's just me.
Well, there's also that aspect with it, which it kind of gets touched on later on, where, just being on the source, you're constantly kind of regenerating ether. So it's like, even though it's probably... I hesitate to say weakening Y'shtola. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's kind of aging her faster than it would probably normally do for most of us. And she definitely seems to be powerful enough to be able to do a lot of things. But, I think, honestly, all that's probably doing is, like, she's got a battery, right? And is constantly and it won't charge any higher than, like, 80% because the battery's, constantly being in use or whatever. I don't know. Something like that. Like, I can just imagine that's probably, like, the only real effects that she has on her at this time, at least. And, I mean, eventually the battery's going to die and, she's going to not be able to probably see at some point because she can't summon the Aether for it. But as long as she returns the source, I'm imagining that most of the Aether that she expended on that can be obtained through just being around, eating, and all that.
Yeah, just eat a bunch of apples. Sure. That'll be good.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
You get that Aether back. So the pact is made. We go into our solo instance with Scarmiglione. That's where we learn that, really that nothing can really die. And Scarmiglione has this awesome power where he can hasten the resurrection of those Void Scent around him. So that's what he does. He summons some Void Scent. We kill them. He brings them back. We kill them. He brings them back. He kills them. So eventually we're thinking, okay, there's nothing else can we do. And then we make a further pact. Well, we don't make a pact. We let Zero know that she actually owes us because we gave her her name. She didn't care about a name. She's like, whatever, it's whatever. We gave her a name, but because she accepted it, it was a gift to her and she accepted it as her name. She now owes us. So she helps us for giving her a name by bailing us out of this Scarmiglione snafu and seals them in crystal. I was hoping that she would just eliminate them and then, actually eliminate them. And that would disperse all the Void Scent that he's consumed back out. And then they could reform and kind of repopulate things. But sealing it is a nice kind of clean way. What do you think about the sealing and sealing in general? Do you think that's a good story beat to go through? Could we maybe see, all these crystals that we're sealing? Maybe they break up and we have a big four fiends battle all at once.
That's that is something that is a potential for sure. Yeah, I mean, Scarmiglione himself is like nearly invincible as well. Like he can not only just bring back things like instantly, but he himself was like invincible. Like you couldn't do any damage to him. And so that when Zero ended up doing a mortal blow, he was like, "How is this possible? Like you're not supposed to be able to damage me." And then he got turned to crystal or whatever. And then, but yeah, I mean, I think it's cool, and that potential to be able to use those crystals somehow in some way to do something with, whether it be a rematch fight or anything, is definitely there. So I'm down with that. I'm just interested to see where the story goes because I mean now going a little bit further into our discussion, but Barbariccia is also now crystallized too. So
yeah,
there's that. So yeah, so I'm interested to see where it goes for sure.
What if we use those crystals to summon the four fiends to fight with us against Golbez?
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
I don't see it either, but it would be cool.
What I see is we seal all four, but then I guess it would be 6.4. Like if we get Cagnazzo as a dungeon boss in 6.3, and then Rubicante as the trial in 6.3, then 6.4 could be Golbez getting all the crystals and releasing them, and then we have a four fiends fight like we did in Final Fantasy IV. They rotated. And then 6.5 we have Golbez. Do we like that plan?
You're the Final Fantasy IV expert, brother. I'll defer to you on this one. But I'm interested to see what they do with Golbez in general.
Sure.
That's a whole other discussion. Are they going to do the whole Final Fantasy IV thing where he's not actually a bad guy? I don't know. I guess we need to know more about what his deal is.
He could be Memoriat.
He could be. Going back, I just talked to Ciela because I'm in the game right now. I wanted to see if she had any information.
Sure.
Ciela, by the way, is the shadow person, the shadow keeper. She's kind of the whole reason why the first fell to the light in the first place.
Yep.
So talking to her, she said that she was also a Memoriat. So she said she was, and that her power to be able to do that was taken from her by the Ascians when she was brought to the first. But she is a Memoriat as well. So she's one, Zero's one, maybe even Golbez could be one too. So I'm interested. Maybe he's one of the ones that just got so corrupted that he turned to a Void Send or something. It's really hard to say. So but obviously in 4 he's Cecil's brother, so will we see any Cecil anything in this game? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe here's the theory. Maybe Golbez is one of the reflections of Azem. So he is
from the 13th, yeah.
He's one of us. He's, wouldn't that be trippy?
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Huh?
Anyway, yeah. Another tangent, but yeah, that would be cool.
I mean, do we even know what the next expansion's even going to be closely related to? Because, I mean, what if we just save just enough of the 13th that the next expansion is just we do more exploring of the 13th, kind of like Shadowbringers?
I would like that a lot, but...
Maybe for 8.0. Maybe for 8.0. I think we're going to Mericidia for the expansion myself. I think that's what...
full-on Mericidia?
Yeah, I think that's what saving Azdaja is for. And we then, once we save her, because it looks, I thought she was completely screwed because she's been on the 13th for 1,000 years, right? Ever since the Age of Elegance.
Yes.
So there's no way that the environment of the 13th didn't seep into her and, corrupt her. But it seems like Golbez has really sealed her off and confined her and imprisoned her so that, she's just pure aether to be siphoned off. She's a food source, basically. And then that way the environment doesn't corrupt her to be where she's just more void sent aether to be consumed. So she's like pure aether. Again, a food source, a fuel source, big battery like Y'shtola.
Yeah, she's just straight up a battery, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we save her and we take her home to Mericidia. What do you guys think?
Is she from Mericidia? I'm not sure. I for sure know Bahamut was from Mericidia, and I definitely know Tiamat was as well because they were a thing.
Yeah, so she was during that war between Mericidia and the Alligans, when the Mericidians were summoning Sephiroth and Sophia and Zervan, and then Tiamat, of course, summons Bahamut. That's how he got then trapped by the Alligans in Dalamud at that point.
Yeah.
And Azdaja's last course was to, seal up.
Go
into the 13th portal and seal that off. So, she's from that whole time frame. I'm sure she would like to just go home and rest for a millennia or so. So
that would be cool. But I'm just wondering what the conflict of Mericidia is going to be then. I mean, we got to have a whole expansion around it, right? So who's going to be the big bad?
I'm just happy to have a lot more dragons again.
That's fair. Yeah, going back to the Heavensward thing. So,
yeah. What do you think about Mericidia, or do you want to go to the 13th some more?
I mean, okay, so you know that I'm making a horror game.
Yeah, I've seen bits here and there.
You know that I'm very much into edgy things, right?
Sure.
So I would much rather go to the 13th, personally. Like, for example, my favorite expansions in World of Warcraft are Burning Crusade and Legion.
Legion's dope.
The dark and all that, even my
Demonic
apartment
forces,
here is super dark and moody, kind of. But, it's, I would like to explore the 13th more. I'd like to see more landscape, because I feel like they've opened up this whole Pandora's box at this point of, now we're actually seeing more of this place that we've kind of touched on in the past, and like I want to see more of it. I understand that the landscape's ever shifting and everything, especially with Barichia's freaking domain being able to shift around and everything, but I'd like to see us save like a portion of it, and then be able to eventually save the whole area and kind of see some of that Final Fantasy IV inspired structures and stuff like that. I thought the town with all the void scent and everything was very much reminiscent of classical RPGs. Like I played Lunar Silverstar Story back in the day.
So
like when you go to the moon there, they had a bunch of like creature people and everything. And I've always expected like these RPG games to have like a monster town and stuff like that. So when I went there, I was like, oh, cool, monster friends, even though really what it was, they were just being told not to eat my ether. But that's more into the story again. Side tangent shit.
At that point we had beat their lady boss, and so they knew that we were a lot stronger than them, so they shouldn't even try it, because we just beat them up or devour them, because that's what they think. I'm with you. I do want to see more of the 13th. I do think that there is a plan in place to save the 13th, and I think it needs a lot more time and build up and setting up, transferring umbral energy to the first and bringing astral energy to the 13th, kind of a swap in aether to rebalance those two. And I think that's just going to take a lot more time than just a couple patches to set that up and make that a full-fledged expansion. So that's kind of where I'm hoping maybe 8.0 goes to. I just don't think there's enough time to do that with 7.0.
I think that's fair. I'm with you where I would rather go to the 13th personally than to Mericidia. I think Mericidia can be really, really cool, and I think it will be really, really cool if they end up doing it for next expansion. But you also have to think like the 13th has been something that's been building up forever.
Yep.
Like every single expansion, we've had a little bit of 13th. Like in 2.0, we've had the World of Darkness, right? That was the whole thing was going into there. And I don't know if there was really anything in Heavensward besides the whole Mericidian conflict, where now Azdaja went into the 13th to kind of do all that thing, and the whole Azaslaw thing. So I guess there's a little bit of 13th there. In not a lot in Stormblood either, I guess. But in 4.0 with in 3.0 we had Una Kalhai. So yeah, there's the connection to the 13th there. In 4.0, we had Ciela in the Shadow Keeper, and now we're getting this whole thing about of Zero and going in to save Azdaja. Like the 13th has been building up, and there was even the whole Void Arc storyline, which was about and Queen Skathak, and that's even mentioned in this patch was Queen Skathak and all that stuff. So it's been building up for a long time. I think it would be not so great if we just do what's the Shadowbringers? If we just did Shadowbringers again, right? Where we're just going to another shard and we're just saving it like we did with the first. I think they have to go somewhere different than that, because it would just be a retelling of the same old shit, right? We're just going in there, we're saving them from darkness like we saved the first from light, whatever. But this is a thing that's been building up forever. So I do think that they could do something really interesting with this story of the culmination of all this coming together. Would be really cool to see. So maybe you're right. Maybe it takes an expansion to get there. Maybe 8.0 is the way to go. But I'm definitely all for exploring the 13th more than we already have.
True, and I think it's probably too soon to do a Shadowbringers 2.0 with the reverse. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would hate it to be we go to a shard, then we go back to the source. Source. I think we need after spending an entire expansion for the most part on another shard. I think it's good that we spend this, expansion and probably the next here on the source and dealing with our problems. We'll get to the 13th. We'll save it eventually. I'm sure of it. It's just going to need a little bit more brewing in the vat, as it were. One thing that I had it on top of my head. What was the thought?
Happens to me all the time, bro. All the time.
Did you see that big star that's appeared recently? About
yes, we'll definitely get to that. It's not in the notes or one of the main topics, but we'll definitely get to that.
Is that the thing that's in Ultima Thule?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I haven't seen that yet. I'm going there right now. But
okay.
You remember your thought. Try to remember that thought. I believe in you.
Oh my god.
Just fill in space while you think of what you were trying to think of.
So I like bacon. I don't know if you guys like bacon.
Bacon's pretty good. Do you like crispy, or do you like it like less crispy?
I like it in the middle. I like it where it's chewy but also crispy.
That's fair. I think that's there's got to be that perfect. Oh my god, yeah, that crystal is
kind of like a steak. You got to make sure it's like done but not super done.
I don't know. I like mine medium rare.
That's that like the cocoon thing. That's like all messed up. Oh, they're doing something with that. Ooh,
yeah, that's like we thought that may be like a Dalamud 2.0 kind of thing where it's a planet reforming. And there's thoughts that maybe it's something with the Omicrons because they're in Ultima Thule. And
yeah, I was wondering if it was just going to be a setup for the Beast Tribe, or I'm sorry, the Tribal Quest or whatever they're
Tribal
called.
Quest, yeah, Tribe Quest. But then there's also thoughts that maybe the things that we're doing on the 13th is doing something in our shard now. Maybe because the first is being repopulated with life. Or reactivated with life. So there's a bunch of different theories. Honestly, we don't know. We have no idea. But it's something to keep an eye out for future patches. That's for sure.
I mean, they've done this thing, and they did it in 1.0 with Dalamud coming down, right? Like people didn't know what that thing in the sky was, and they were like speculating, "Oh, what's that going to be? What's going to happen?" And then Dalamud came down and fucking did all that stuff. So maybe they're doing that again. I'm all for that, just environmental storytelling kind of stuff.
Yeah,
just as long as the game doesn't get shut down for a few years.
Exactly. Yeah. As long as they're not doing doing that again. A Realm Reborn, right?
Yeah. Final Fantasy 17 coming to a PC and PS5 near you.
That's Yoshi P's new MMO.
From the ground up. There we go. So we get done with the Pact and we deal with Scarmignon. We seal him in Crystal. Then we move to her domain. She takes us to her home, and we see basically that she's become this safe haven for all these desperate Voidsent that are just tired of fighting. Golbez basically has this a mission basically to unite all of the 13th under his, Night Steeled Fist. And he's using the Four Fiends to do that. But there's Void Scent that have had, thousands and thousands of years dealing with this fighting and devouring and being devoured and then breaking up and being reformed and resurrection, that they're just tired of it. And she's kind of made, a little sanctuary for these Void Scent, which is really kind of cute. I really kind of appreciate it. But it also brings us to, like, it gives us the level of importance that, okay, we've got to do something because Golbez is on a mission to really bring everything under his yield on the 13th. Then what does he do after that? Like, what's his mission after everything on the 13th is under his grip? Does he come for the source? Does he know about the source? So many different questions that we just have no answers. And I'm excited to dive more into when we get more patches about his history. Yeah. But what do you guys think about the, Zero Sanctuary and Golbez's mission that we can, assume that he's on?
I feel like it's an inevitability that Golbez wants to try to go after the other shards. The 13th, it has to be.
You think he knows about the other shards?
It has to be common knowledge, dude. I mean,
because they keep seeping out.
Yeah, they seep out into all different places, right? Like that's a big problem on the source is these Void Scent. I mean, all the way back from like Hawk Manor, right? Like that was the whole thing where Lady Amandine like summoned a Void Scent, and that's why she's all screwed up. And like, I mean, it's been happening for a long time, and so I feel like Golbez has to be doing something with that. He has to maybe be trying to unify the 13th, and then he's going to try to take over the other shards or something. Or there's got to be something there. So that's really interesting. Now that I wasn't even thinking about that, but now thinking about it, that's really interesting to think about. But no, I loved Zero's little haven. I think it's really cool to see all these different mobs we've been fighting forever, like Hecdies and little imps and stuff, and them interacting, and they're like, oh man, can we feed on you? Can we take a little bit of your ether? And then Zero's like, no, there will be no, you do not
no consuming on this domain.
No consuming, yes, especially not my friends here. But even going further, there's the littlest of the Void Scent are like swapping ether back and forth. There's these two little friends, which actually is a really tragic story when we get a little further into it. But yeah, these little Void Scent are like, yeah, you take some of mine, then I'll take a little bit of yours, and then we'll just that's how we survive. And I think that's really cool. So I really hope we go back there in the future. It really is kind of a shame how once you're done with the 13th for where we're at now, it kind of seals it off. We can't go back and explore the castle Troya or Zero's domain, but I bet you we go back there in the future, and I'm really excited to see how that evolves, and maybe it becomes a more permanent zone in the future we can kind of go back to. But yeah,
well, they made a very distinct point. There is no Aetherites there, so
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Onion, what do you think about Zero's Island Sanctuary, as it were?
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe she just needs to set up the permissions that way Golbez can't come visit. Like honestly, I thought it was pretty cool, and but I again the dirty mind aspect of it when you say that they're swapping Aether, like it just like the most perverted thoughts seeped into my mind. I was like, hey, you know what? They're lonely. They gotta have some fun sometimes, but no, I thought it was interesting to kind of see how I thought it was kind of interesting to see how they survive not having like a fresh source of Aether in their little in their own little world. It's like they're so separated from everything else, and I highly doubt that any of them go out to hunt for like Void Scent that are like smaller or anything like that just so that they can feed on it. Because it seems like that's just kind of like their little home. They'll just take in people or other Void Scent, so that way they're safe more so than anything. So it would seem out of character for them to actually go out and hunt Void Scent. So I mean, it tied a little bit of the, I guess, plot holes I thought they were going to be for how they're still alive and how they're able to kind of like persist in this world without consuming the Aether, not becoming some sort of shriveled husk of what they probably would be.
Yeah, I just wonder about like the animal kingdom kind of side of it. Is like when you consume another void sense, they're inside you. They become part of you to the point where you can even kind of hear them inside of you. Like you would think that like in a regular ecosystem, if there's no new prey to feast on, and they're all just becoming a part of you, at some point there's going to come down to one person or entity is going to have all the aether. And maybe that's what Golbez's plan is like, hey, I instructed these 4, I gave them a little bit of power, but I know I can consume them when it comes time. I have them consume everything around, and then I consume them. I don't know. It's just a very weird ecosystem. I'm not sure how there's still not just one big entity in the void.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think what you're trying to get at is that there's like a finite amount of ether on the 13th, right? But you also do have to remember, I think that the void sent going to the source, being summoned, or just finding cracks in the reality or whatever and going through, are probably harvesting some ether and bringing it back. Okay. I don't know how much that really contributes to the ecosystem of ether on the 13th, but there at least is that to consider. But yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, maybe Golbez is trying to conglomerate all the ether on the entire thing into himself, and he can become like a one-man army or something. It's hard to say.
Maybe this is a crossover with the game of Risk, we get a Final Fantasy 14 13th shard edition of Risk.
Sure, I'm down.
I've never played Risk, so
you've never played Risk? Risk is so good.
Nope.
It's free to play on Steam. 12. It's free to play on Steam.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. I know those games can go for hours.
Oh god!
I remember
a week ago I had a match that lasted 2.5 hours.
I tend to avoid games that are going to break friendships and families. So
there you go. There was I think it's an episode of Seinfeld where I think it's like Kramer and Newman have a game of Risk, and they try to like bring it onto the subway with them, and they're trying to play on the board game while they're on I think it's pretty funny. But yeah, those games are wild. I haven't played it since I was very, very young with my dad. I think I played Risk last, so I think it's funny you're playing it regularly, Tark, on Steam apparently. Yeah, I had a game that lasted two hours yesterday or last week.
Yeah, it's when you have you turn in cards to get troops. When you have a fixed amount, it's hard to break deadlocks. When you have a progressive amount, it's easier to break deadlocks because you're like, oh, I'm getting 25. Well, I'm getting 30. Well, I'm getting 35. Well, I'm getting 40. So yeah, eventually someone's going to have this huge army that drops all at once that just wipes the board. So when I play fixed, like those games can go just forever because I'm defending my borders and take what I can and inch out little by little bit. Anyways, side tangent number 2.
Side tangent 2 complete.
Isn't that like side tangent 6 now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Lost count.
So Piers, you brought up the little 2 that were exchanging aether, but one of them gets really scared, right? It gets really scared, so scared that they feel that Barbaricia is coming, and they used to be under her control in her army, and he's just so tired of fighting and so scared of her that he asks his friend to consume him so that he doesn't have to deal with it. I don't think the plan worked out quite how he examined it, because now, as we discussed, the one void send is now part and inside the other one, and the consciousness is still there. So unfortunately, it was consumed, but it's still scared, and now its buddy is scared too because it feels its emotions too. Like total mind trip, like, oh, well, I'm sorry, that feels bad. But that lets us know that Barbaricia is on her way, and boy, does she make an entrance, right?
Yeah, she sure does. I mean, she just like appear right on Zero's doorstep basically, and is like, yo, let's take this fight to my realm real quick. But
well, when we find out that and we find out with the side story that's later, that she's one of the only void sent that has the power to move her domain wherever she sees fit.
Yes,
so where everyone else is kind of fixed in where they are in their domain, their landmass, as it were, she can move her landmass all over the 13th to, Golbez's bidding and find desperate targets and bring them into the fold or consume them.
Yep, roving landmass. Yes.
Yeah. And
I thought it was kind of a silly concept, in my opinion, but the side story makes a little more sense. So
yeah, that's where I think that side story is just so good. It's just really explained a lot in their backstories. So, and we don't really get that kind of backstory with bosses like that. This is pretty awesome. I really like it. What do we think about? Does she use like 15 cans of hairspray a day? Does she go through a lot of gel? Does she have like 50,000 different brushes and combs? What do you think about her daily hair regimen?
Maybe, I don't know. I just think the realism in me is just like, okay, she's a void sense. She can do crazy stuff with her hair. Whatever. That's her thing, right? So that's her magical power, is just kind of manipulating her hair and her ether, her wind ether. So yeah. I mean, whatever. I'm down. It's also really interesting though to think about, like, I wonder if there's any similarities between her and the second in the final boss of the Weeping City of Mach, right? So like, there's the final boss Califasteri also uses her hair and turns her hair into like blades, and she's also a void scent or has some void something going on. Yeah. So I wonder if the two of them knew each other in a previous life or something. I would like to see that come together. You know, maybe Califasteri and Barbaricia.
Maybe Califasteri was her handmaiden that was helping her out back in the day.
Yeah, I would love to
awesome
see that
tie together, right?
If they tied those two together, that'd be amazing.
That's the kind of lore tie-togethers that we want. That's awesome.
Yes, for sure.
So yeah, I think of Barbaricia as Garuda mixed with Bayonetta.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Onion?
Man, as far as the hair regimen goes, I'm pretty sure she just probably does what I do every day and just wake up and not do anything with it. Just
hey, me too, dude. Exactly. That's how you handle long hair, bro.
You guys don't appreciate your hair, okay? When you have something like this, okay? If I had your hair, I would take care of it every day. I would brush it, stroke it.
I shampoo and condition my hair, and then I brush it. That's all I do. And honestly, I could do a little bit more. I got a little bit of frizzies going on up here, but I think it just kind of works. Just works.
Sometimes just a good brushing, once every like 2 weeks. Sometimes that's all you need.
Exactly.
But like, I don't know. Like I thought her domain didn't surprise me when she was talking like through the staff with Golbez. She was talking about like her hair and everything, and then I saw the landmass and was just like, oh, that's not grass, that's hair.
It's straight up hair, yeah.
Okay. So like I was like, I'm not surprised. She was talking about her hair blowing in the wind and everything. Okay, that explains it. I didn't think there was wind in the 13th, but I guess that explains it. But I thought it was kind of cool, and green mommy,
Green mommy. Lord.
A lot of mommies in this here.
I'm sad that the great sword from her drop is not her sword.
Is it not?
No.
I noticed that the sword that she uses has a lot of the same design as the weapons that you get from her. Like there's the vines and the little, like, it looks like little white berries on the weapon. So like I thought that's interesting, but I didn't realize that the great sword wasn't the same. But I guess that makes sense.
That's her weapon. You can't have her weapon.
Yeah, I guess you just can't have her weapon. Like it's the same with like Thornton. Everybody's like, oh man, the greatsword is Thornton's greatsword, and it's not. If you look at, they're two completely different models. Yeah. Like they're just not going to let you roll around with Ascalon. So I guess it's the same with Barbaricia, right? You just can't use her sword.
Maybe this is where we start getting artifact weapons in later expansions. And then we get Ascalon, we get her greatsword.
That'd be cool.
Why can't we have Tupsamati? Right?
Tupsamati would be cool.
Yeah, it would be dope. In orange, superior stats. You can overmeld times 10.
Sure. Louis Suave cosplay.
Anything past 5 is a 1% chance to meld. Get wrecked, bank accounts.
Yeah, sure. 1% chance. 0.1%.
It'll just be a Mog Station item. That's all.
Oh, my lord. Yeah. Glamour only, please. Glamour only. All right. So after this, what happens to Zero? Does she get hit? Is this where she gets hit? by something?
I don't know if she gets hit. What, the fight with Barbaricio, right?
Yeah.
Or is it before? I think she just uses a lot of her power, and that's why she gets so weak.
Yeah, I think that's what it was too. She just
Okay.
used that Memoria ability one too many times on powerful beings.
She just expended all of her aether to the point where she really didn't have anything left and collapsed. And in this world, you can't just recover by resting. So we're like, hey, I got this bright idea. Let's take her against her will and take her back to the source where the Ambrian aether will replenish her. We can get her food. That'll replenish her. Do things that we do on the source to replenish our aether that she can't do on the 13th. So yeah, we kidnap a unconscious woman. Nothing wrong here. Everyone on the Scions seems to go along with it. Astinian even carries her out. So it's all good, right?
Let's be real here, though. Okay, number one, let me say that Zero was not going to get better just lying there, like you said. So we kind of had to do some emergency stuff. And number two, for a Void Scent, it'd be like kidnapping a kid to take them to Disneyland. All right, like Zero's going to love it on the source. She's going to just bathe in the ether, bro. So I don't. I think she got the better deal here for sure.
I do.
Well, not only that, but I think they're
ahead.
talking about I don't think the Void Scent can willingly accept the aether unless they're conscious. So I think that was kind of the big thing too. So
yeah,
they have to actively consume it. I do appreciate though that Vitra Varshan apologizing to her when she finally awakens and we start feeding her a bunch of apples. Does the food change? Did you guys do anything? What was your food choice for her?
Apples, as far as I know.
Fresh.
Actually, I did choose the fresh aether.
Oh yes, that's right. I chose that too. I was like, yo, let me. When you go to the I forget
the
what
diner,
that
the cafe,
Megaduda or something.
Yeah,
it's some weird or Razat Han name.
The diner.
You can ask and the last one is like, yo, can I have some like fresh ether, please? And they're like, I don't know if we serve that, but here's some from fruit for you. I thought that was pretty funny.
So yeah, we give her fruit. I thought it was absolutely hilarious when she just basically takes out the ambient energy of the apple just by just drawing it out instead of actually eating it. Like she doesn't know how to eat. So again, she's such a blank slate that you got to teach her the ways of an outside world. It's kind of crazy to think about.
It's interesting to think about that, but I wonder how much of that is just her forgetting how to eat. Because if her story is that she was born and her mother were Memoriates before the 13th fell, right? Like fully fell. And then so she had to have known something of human life before she went Void Scent. So I wonder if it is just her forgetting after the thousands of years she's been alive or however long she's been alive.
If it started to fall as she was in the womb,
that's fair.
I don't know about you guys. I don't remember anything from before age 5 or 6. So
yeah. But I remember her saying that her and her mother were both Memoriates and they kind of did that stuff together before her mom died or whatever. So
timeline's so scary because it's been aeons and millennia. So
it has been. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. She just kind of shriveled the fruit up.
Shriveled the fruit up and here, just take a bite. Let's try this
eating thing. Yeah.
Onion, what did you think about Zero's scary interaction with our Akasodara friend?
I kind of expected it, to be honest with you. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, so yeah, you're leaving this visitor to our planet, not someone who's actually necessarily probably going to be scared of most things, but you're leaving this person here in this room with this being that she has never seen in her lifetime, looks nothing like her, just a giant
elephant.
Look,
it's just a giant elephant. It's fine.
They're scary looking if you think about it. If you were to see this as the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning and you've never seen one in your life, but you've seen an elephant at the zoo,
and it starts talking to you.
You see this anthropomorphic elephant just standing right there staring at you, what's the first thing you're gonna do? And as soon as she was just like, I was just like, yeah, that was perfect. And then of course, the reaction to her freaking out was perfect too. So I loved it. I loved that scene so much.
It was awesome. It was so good.
What's her name? What is the name of the Arcasadra? I forget what her name is.
I forgot. That's why I went with the race all of a sudden.
But anyway, okay, so we all forgot her name. That's fine. Hey, she's a cool character. I like her. Anyway, I like how she plays along with the fear. She's like, oh man, where is that beast you're talking about? But anyway, this isn't time that we should be fooling around. We should, she's funny. Actually going on with the joke. I think that was really, really cool.
Yeah, she rolled with it pretty good.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then we basically get to the point where, okay, well, you're here now. Vitra apologizes for kidnapping her, but we explained to her that we had no other choice. Otherwise, you were basically just fodder for someone else. You were going to get devoured or killed, and you were just going to be done. So we brought her back, and then we take this trip around. We show her around so she can experience the first. And again, this is just where I love the blank slate that she is. She's learning new things. She's growing as a character, and I'm hoping that it's not too much longer before she understands that, hey, these people are friends, because we go back to the very beginning. It's like, are you friend? What is friend? Like, I hope we can instill on her what a friend is, and maybe she can come to understand that, these are people that I want to help protect, kind of like the people that, the Voidsend I protected on my sanctuary, and help out of the goodness of my heart. So we're not constantly, having to form bargains and stuff with her. How did you guys feel about the ending to the MSQ, as it were?
I thought it was really well done. I like taking Zero around Razahan and just kind of letting her experience the world. I don't know if you guys know, but you can go see Zero right now. She's by the airship landing, and she's just standing there. And when you talk to her, she's just like, the way the sky changes color with passage of time, it's probably a mundane thing to you, but to me, it's a marvel. I dare say I won't grow bored in this world. I just love that.
Nice.
I have never really, I know you've always liked Y'shtola, and she was always like your kind of 14 crush. I've never had that in this game. I've never really really liked a character that much, but Zero's really, really growing on me, and I think she might be my Y'shtola, to you, right? I think she'll be that character I just really, that endears me a lot. So I like that. I'm really, really excited to see more of the story with Zero. I hope she becomes a character that is not just a one and done thing where we get done the expansion and then we never see her again. I hope we bring her along in 7.0 and 8.0. Maybe she becomes like, she could be like a Graha kind of thing where she becomes like a new member of the crew or something. I would really like that. And then going further with the ending, I mean, we got to see some Golbez stuff and some more ominous talking with Cognazzo and Rubicante, and Cognazzo is like, is like, let me handle this. I got this. Don't worry about it. And so so we're probably going to see him in 6.3. And then Golbez starts walking down his thing, and he's being all ominous and talking about his plans and being a villain and monologuing. And so I'm intrigued. Let's just say the end of the MSQ had me super intrigued to see where it goes. That's where I'm at.
Onion?
Oh, I mean, I have to agree on pretty much every point on that one. I'm sitting there I'm just imagining this whole scenario playing out over time, and just the fact that we have such a blank slate with Zero, to where we can actually see real character development come from a character. Mm-hmm. If they completely get rid of her, like they've done with previous characters that they introduce in post whatever patches.
Ashfont, Ysael.
Exactly. If they do that, I think a number of people are going to be extremely upset, because they're going to be missing out on that character growth. it could, even Estinian has grown as a character over the expansions that have gone on. I mean, he's still pretty much essentially the same character, but you've seen his like attachment that he's formed with, Alphano and stuff like that. It would be nice to see a new character, a new fresh face that we can watch grow, maybe grow an attachment with your character instead of like one of the NPCs, so that way you've got like a little companion. Not, I say little, but she's probably way more powerful than your Warrior of Light for all we know. But it's like, just having that there. I hope they take that further. And then of course, like you were talking about with the coming content and stuff, and Golbez shaking his fist in the sky and everything, which I always think that's kind of
super cheesy. Super.
It's like the theatrical, the typical theatrical villain thing. But that whole ending part got me really pumped for whatever comes next. And the fact that we're going to be probably waiting a few months on that. I don't know the timelines on these patches. I'm not as familiar with it as you guys are, but yeah, I'm at a point where like, I'm glad I got this new job so I can start paying for my subscription constantly. Because I'm ready for that next stuff to start hitting, man.
Unfortunately, with the patches as they are now, it's going to be 4 months. So
unfortunately,
late December, early January. Okay,
that gives me time to do some Savage for the first time ever.
Yeah,
there you go, dude.
Savage, they'll be doing, they got the 0.5 patches and all that stuff. They'll add some stuff between the MSQ, before 6.3. So there is stuff to at least look forward to. But yeah, I'm gonna be thirsty for this storyline continuing for about 4 months now. 3.5 months now. So
yeah. All right, to wrap up this first main quest that we have, man, we've been talking about a while. Favorite part of Zero, since it's Tark's new girlfriend.
No.
Come on. Sorry, dude.
No.
What's your favorite part of Zero?
Favorite part of her?
Yeah, favorite moment, parts, mannerism, whatever.
I was gonna say she has a cute face. I don't know, what you want me to say.
Face.
Her scythe is cool.
Your scythe. Okay, you like her scythe?
I like her scythe, and I do like how she's starting to learn about how you can interact with people other than just trying to make bargains with them. I like that. That's my favorite part, is her it's just learning that there is more to the world than just sucking ether out of things. So yeah.
You can do more than just suck, okay? Well, onion.
Sure. Okay.
Oh, sucking ether, man.
Yes.
That's a euphemism.
Honestly, my favorite part, honestly, and it's probably cheesy as hell, is just seeing everybody interacting around the table and actually seeing a smile on her face. Because you don't really see that for the longest time. And even though, animation's probably a little bit limited, they don't want to make it look too crazy. But like seeing that small, kind of
this isn't
smile,
Hildebrand.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing that small smile kind of start to slowly form on her face was kind of actually heartwarming, to be honest with you, because it felt like she's probably regaining some of that humanity back that she'd lost so long ago. Mm-hmm. And it's probably maybe some of the memories that she had from back then may start kind of coming through too. So I'm hoping that that's something that we kind of see, and that, just the smile. That's really it.
For sure.
My mannerism, though, it's got to be little tip of the cap when she's thinking.
Yeah. That's
some
cute.
Bloodborne stuff right there.
Yes, it was such a Bloodborne outfit. Like,
yes.
If that
100%.
comes to the Mog Station, I have to get that. Right?
Absolutely. I want that scythe like right now. So
so good.
That's an easy buy.
That's an easy buy, especially if it's glowing, right?
Yes, of course. If it's not, though, that thing is really cool looking.
Yeah, so good. All right, so that is the end of our first main quest. We want to hear from you folks now. What do you guys think about the MSQ? Did you like how the new character is? Did you like her introduction? Do you feel it was a little bit cheap, with the little MacGuffin that it was? Drop a comment down below. Tell us what you think. All right, let's now move on to main quest number 2. Main quest number 2 is Endwalker the expansion of poor father figures and awful mothers? What are your guys' thoughts on Eric Thonius' really messed up childhood and disturbed parental figures? Piers, we're gonna throw this to you first.
Sure.
What do we think of Laha Brea and Athea as parents?
I mean,
Jesus
they're
Christ.
not great. they're not great. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I was actually incredibly surprised by the twist, though, that it's Athena that's really kind of the evil SOB in this whole story, and not La Habrea, and that it was Athena basically being like, "Yeah, I'm going to take it." There's a lot of parallels between Final Fantasy VII and this game a lot of times, but it is very much like a Hojo Lucretia kind of deal, right? Where like they're going to take their child and they're just going to do some crazy messed up things to them for whatever they want. And it's hard to say, though, what Athena's goal is. We don't really know yet. Is there something in Eric Thonios that maybe is special, and that's what she's trying to draw out of him?
Maybe.
And why she's experimenting on him like she is. It could be any number of things. But yes, poor Eric Thonios did not have a good childhood, and I feel bad for the guy. But I am interested to see where they go with it. I feel like I say that all the time, but I am interested to see where they go with that. And hopefully there's some reconciliation between Eric Thonios and La Habrea, because you really only find out that La Habrea was the way he was to kind of protect Eric Thonios.
Yes.
Right? Like he kind of like withdrew into his work and stuff because he felt like it would just be better overall for his son. And so maybe there is some reconciliation that will happen there, but those are my initial thoughts on poor Eric Thonios and his unfortunate family situation.
All right, Onion, are you ready to come under the welfare system of Athena and La Habrea? Are you willing to become their child?
Look, so I would never want La Habrea to be my father. I'm going to be 100%. I have way too much of a... I get angry very easily. And so if I had a father that were to be treating me like that, I would probably have not used any sort of magical powers or anything like that against him. I would have probably just kicked him in the shins when I was a child. But that being said, I kind of saw it coming, if I'm being 100% honest. Partially because of the artwork that was being put out for it.
Sure.
And knowing that, one was La Habrea, one was whatever that was going to be. But, just hearing the way La Habrea kind of talked to him initially, I had a feeling that it wasn't the way it seemed. And as we proceeded through the story, you could see that fatherly side of La Habrea kind of come out
seep
very
through a little
slowly.
bit. Yeah.
Like you could tell that he cared about his kid, but you knew that he had no way of knowing how to
Express himself?
really be suppressing stuff, but then also maybe just doesn't know how to properly be a father. I think that could be part of it, because I think that the thing with parenting and stuff, and just kind of bring it to real life, there's no exact science to being a parent.
For sure.
There's a million books written on how to be a parent. Not everybody agrees on all those topics, Yeah. And his method of parenting is clearly of a more if you were to bring in like a military person into a house with a lot of structure and stuff, and a lack of empathy, I think that's La Habrea's kind of character, I think, when it comes to that.
And I think that's where the choice of, getting just a little bit ahead, him separating himself and all that emotion, and sealing that away is probably what really hurt, the fatherly side that could have been.
I think that was a huge detriment to it, for sure. But then also you have the mother playing this role, again, moving far a little bit into the story. She's playing this role that, Eric Thonios wants, that love and affection, and he's getting that from one source, even if it's,
false
not
love.
real. Yeah. So of course Eric Thonios is going to look at his two parents and be like, well, which one do I like more? So
that's easy for a kid at that point.
That whole dynamic of him being kind of messed with like that kind of it was compelling enough to kind of keep me kind of like trying to figure out, if it was going to go the way I thought it was, and it kind of did. But anyway,
Well,
yeah.
Sorry, I rambled.
to back it up, let's start at the beginning though for Abyssos. The story here is really gripping me a lot more than the first part did. So we go back to our friends back in Labyrinthios. They say, hey, we found another crystal, on our beacon. And the chief alone is going to go pick that up. Like, I don't know if you guys in horror movies, like one person says they're going to go do something all by themselves. Like, okay, well, we can write them off. They're going to die or something horrific's going to happen.
I just want to go.
We're going to be kidnapped.
Never seeing them again.
Never going to see them again. So that was my first vibe. I'm like, okay, well, he's something bad's going to happen. Okay, like it's a little interesting that we have a second crystal out there, but okay, we'll go. We'll let him do his thing. We'll go back to Abyssos. We go back to Abyssos, and we get immediately teleported. It's like a trap. Like we cross a proximity trap, and we get teleported into our first fight with the Proto Carbuncle. The normal mode's not too bad. Savage, man, that guy's a beast. That guy's a beast. Did you check that out last night, Onion or Clear?
I watched a little bit of it last night. I was actually kind of grinding out my my tank jobs.
Gotcha.
So it was I was watching it, and I did see you guys clear it. And
Nice.
honestly, while I was watching it, I looked at it and I checked out on the abilities because I was like, nope.
Nope.
And it's just kind of like, all right, this is something that I would just have to experience to be able to actually properly understand what's going on. Because I'm sitting here looking at it, I'm like, some of it looks like norm. Oh, that looks like that hurt.
Yeah, there's a lot of that
entire
hurt
night.
moments. Piers, just a little side tangent. What do you think of the Savage, since we really didn't talk about it all that much?
Yeah, we didn't. I'll say that this is probably the hardest first fight in a Savage tier we've had in a very, very long time. And that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Eric Thonios was not very difficult. I can't even remember. Oh, it was Cloud of Darkness. Cloud of Darkness could be a little hard sometimes, but there was really nothing that was super duper punishing besides, I guess, like the tile phase where like you could drop through or something like that could be a little punishing. But if people died there, it wasn't a huge deal. And then
Chaos wasn't bad.
Chaos wasn't bad, but the only one I can think of that was a little bit comparable was Ramu, the new Ramu, right? Horseman from
Rama Revisited. Yeah.
That I'm just thinking of comparable mechanics, right? So the crunch mechanic, I call it the crunch mechanic, but where he's running around
Crunch, yeah.
and he's just like grabbing people up and eating them. That almost has to be like perfectly done. Like you can have like maybe one person die, but if more than one person dies, it's very hard to recover from that. And that just makes me think of Ramu, the lightning spears, right, where everybody had to get pushed back into a lightning spear, or he would just like destroy everybody. Like it's, to me, in a first fight, that's a very, very picky and difficult mechanic to just get for all 8 people to have to do correctly, right? So to see that is very kind of refreshing, that level of difficulty. And yeah, overall, I'm excited to see where the future fights take us, because from what I understand, this is a harder tier overall than Asphodelos. So I'm all for it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoy Carbuncle a lot. I don't think there's very many things I could say that are annoying about it, besides maybe where 2 minutes line up in some of the phases, but that's it.
Sure.
It's a minor thing.
I do like where Potion lines up, like immediately after the break. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Potion lineups are great, yeah. Like, but some of the 2 minutes are a little funky. But
Yeah,
that's
a little
it.
funky.
Yeah.
I appreciate the constant needing to manage everyone's health. Like, there's too many fights where I'm just doses, and just doing that ad nauseum until boss is dead. Eric Thonios in normal was a great example. Like, I would just run out of mana because I forget to use my Adder Skull because I didn't need to, because like no one was taking damage. So like there's constant damage, tank busters like every 30 seconds. It seems like it's just absolutely insane the amount of damage that's going out. So
utilities are very busy.
I am
for sure
firmly engaged in that fight. Let's just say that. You haven't gotten into Savage, right? Yeah, Onion. Are you gonna do it this tier?
I would like to.
Okay.
I haven't put in the time to really look into it too much, to be honest with you, yet though.
Okay.
I still feel like there's a little bit I have to learn about, my Dark Knight, maybe gear up my Reaper if I want to do any DPS, maybe, since that's my other 90. But I would like to. So I've been kind of watching different people's streams and stuff like that while they're doing this content. Like I was watching y'all's Savage last night. At the same time, I was also had another person's Savage up on another screen as well. So I was kind of watching both. They were on P7S, and so that was just watching how all these different groups coordinate and everything. It's been interesting. And I mean, I've come from a raiding background in World of Warcraft, and so having the whole having the Savage content and everything, it looks really compelling to me. And the fact that things seem to be rather on a rotation, for the abilities.
Are you talking about the boss themselves?
Yeah, the boss themselves.
Final Fantasy 14 bosses adhere to a pretty strict script. There's a few that can have variations like Chaos and Guardian. But even in those variations, it's just like a branching path that then comes back to the initial path. So
yeah. And having that, honestly, I think that kind of makes me feel a little more comfortable about trying to learn the fights and everything, because it doesn't feel so random. It doesn't feel like I would need like a boss mod or anything like that. Which honestly, that was when I was playing World of Warcraft and raiding constantly. It just felt like I was relying more on that than actually seeing the fights than anything. And so it's got me interested. And the fact that I don't have to clear trash before the boss fights is awesome. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in doing it. If I were to join a group right now, they'd probably tell me I'm doing too little DPS or something like that. I don't know, whatever spreadsheet they're reading off of. They could be wrong for all I know, but I'd be down to give it some goes. I do know I need to do some of the trials and stuff to get the weapons and stuff though, because I'm still using that level 90 like starting sword for my.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Since you have that WoW background, how do you feel about seeing all this raiding where you don't have any mods pretty much whatsoever? But where WoW, you basically, it was a requirement. Like you had to have boss mods and auras and all these other different parts and the way Blizzard does is that they know they're out there, so they have to design the fights around those mods. Where the fight here is just the fight as they designed it, and there's no mods that technically are supposed to be available. So how do you feel about that two different aspects of raiding design?
I think on one hand, I guess I'll start with my pro mods speech that I have. Is a lot of the mods that World of Warcraft has access to provides a lot of accessibility for players who may have issues with like tunnel vision or lack of being able to see certain things on the screen because of whatever reason that is. I know one of the issues that I have most frequently is keeping an eye on like what abilities I have coming up off cooldown. Because if I want to be able to hit them on like as soon as they're off cooldown, I'm constantly having to stare at my bars. Now there's ways around it. I could always just pop in an extra action bar somewhere that's got the abilities showing on the screen and everything, and as soon as I see it come off cooldown, I can do that and put it somewhere more centrally located. But I think that also has screen clutter, so that's kind of one of those things that I've been trying to avoid and trying to learn. Whereas World of Warcraft, there's a lot of screen clutter because you've got these accessibility options, and that also leads into the downside to it. Is there's a lot of screen clutter. There's a lot of things going on the screen all at one time, and that can
That's not
really
the game,
remove. Well, it's not necessarily that aspect of it. I mean, everybody's played Skyrim. We've all modded Skyrim. Well, unless you haven't played it on a PC. But we've all modded Skyrim.
I play Skyrim au naturel.
Yeah, and see, most of us have though, and it's like it's one of those things where I don't see anything necessarily wrong with it per se, but I do appreciate the aspect that you don't need them in Final Fantasy to be competitive necessarily. I mean, I'm sure there's the argument of a lot of the people doing like the world first stuff and all that. They've probably got something that's helping them out. I don't know the deal on that, but it's one of those things. If you want to do something in a manner that allows you to enjoy the game and you don't want to rely on all that, you don't have to. Like, it's not a requirement. And so that's kind of nice, and that reduces that screen clutter. There's a lot going on because of spell effects, but you could turn that down. So, I mean, just having those as options to just play the game as it was meant to be, I love that. It's, it adds more to the immersiveness, I guess, to it, if that's one way to put it, I guess.
Sure. All right, that's side tangent number 77. Back to Abyssos. So we get there. We face Proto Carbuncle. After that, we come face to face the person that triggered the trap, who appears to be La Habrea. Though our friend, what's his name? Not his title. What's his name?
Themis.
Themis. Thank you. Themis kind of sees through it and sees that he's not really the La Habrea, and kind of goes into a question. What's my name? And this is where we're like, well, his name's Themis, and that's what La Habrea says. And Themis is like, haha, I know you're not the real La Habrea, and that
you would never address me that way.
Yeah, you would never address me that way. I'm like, well, who the hell are you? Oh, are you one of the 14th? I'm like, oh, I wonder who he is. And we find out that Themis is Elidibus. Like,
oh man, shocker.
Boom. Dude, I was shocked. You
knew he was Elidibus.
No,
come on, everybody did.
I did.
Really?
But after knowing and then looking back at him as the Warrior of Light, the boss, you can see the resemblance between those two.
Okay.
Yeah, when you beat him and he's like the little kid holding on to the crystals, like before he gets absorbed into the tower. Yeah, we knew he was a kid, and so that's why I figured a lot of people just figured that Themis was going to be Elidibus. But I guess I'm glad that you guys got surprised by that. I'm sure it had that intended effect on a lot of people. But I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
It made sense though, because like, who else are you going to talk from there?
Yeah.
So I'm glad it's not some no-name character. It's not just Themis, because a Themis we could kind of blow off. But now that we know that he's Elidibus, I'm like, okay, this is a major character. Like, we got major characters in this raid. This is awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad we're getting to know more about the Unsundered. I mean, we obviously know Emmett Selk very, very well. So now getting to know both Elidibus and La Habrea in this raid story is going to be really, really cool. So
I'm still like 90% certain that the La Habrea that we're interacting with now is not the La Habrea.
The same.
Yeah.
Well, I guarantee you, they're definitely going to go into that with the last. The last part of
I hope so.
Of Pandemonium.
I'm willing to bet it's the same La Habrea, because if you think about it, every single Ascian that we've met has acted in their own self-interest for their world, and it definitely went against our best interests. I think at some point there was definitely probably a shift in their personalities at some point, and it may have come from just all those years and years of being alive and not having a world to call their own, and it just played a lot on their psyche and everything. So I think it's always a good possibility that, the La Habrea, the Elidibus, Emmett Selk obviously didn't change too much, but every single one of those characters are exactly the ones that we've met so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all just based on their, psychology, I think, really, at that point.
I think I remember them there being lore that the only reason that like La Habrea was the way that he was is because he continuously swapped bodies like all the time. Like it was just, I know that's a skill like a lot of Ascian, or like all Ascians had, was the ability to swap bodies. But I think La Habrea was particularly like, he just really liked doing that a lot. And I think there was a level of like what's happening in the 13th, right? Or if you absorb someone's ether, they kind of like, you get a little bit of their personality or their like soul inside of you. Might happen with the Ascians too, where like he just did it so much that he started losing himself. And I think La Habrea really lost himself in the end. And when we end up seeing him in 2.0 and 3.0, it's not really like the same guy we're seeing in the Pandemonium story. So you might very well be right. It could just be the same guy, just like so far gone that he's just a different person altogether. But
the reason I'm thinking it's not is, well, you got the tempering, so that messed with all those unsundered to begin with.
For sure. Yeah.
So they're all devoted to Zodiark at that point. But seeing how, especially with this section of story, and getting a little ahead, La Habrea basically, cut himself in half. He has the logical scientist side, and then he had the emotional and, the parenting side and the love and emotion and passion. And he, severed those two halves of himself and sealed away, the emotional side. Now, the emotional side kind of broke free and formed its own being. But the fact that he cut himself off leads me not to think that, he doesn't just get that back because he's tempered. Like that part of him is not, part of him. But where I see Eric Thonios right now, if he was to take his dad's mantle, if something were to happen to him in this last section, like he has that kind of background in rage and anger towards his father that can be transposed into wanting now that he's going to be tempered, to protecting, his people at all costs. So that's how I see. I don't know. Do you guys think I'm crazy?
See that? I guess I could see that, but I also see Eric Thonios as not necessarily being filled with rage or anything like that, but more so frustrations with his own father, not necessarily everyone else. And I mean, obviously there was the frustrations with, the convocation or whatever, whoever was in control of all that stuff. Words are hard, but he's got that frustration with them, but I don't necessarily see that coming as a point of him taking that mantle and then, being the one that we know. Although it could be possible, because again, everybody's kind of gone through their own stuff over the years, and I think, like Piers was saying, it's possible that just the changing of bodies has warped their minds slightly. So,
so we find Hesperos, not Hesperos, Hephaestus.
Hephaestus. I say in Greek mythology, it's Hephaestus. It's spelled Hephaestus. A little. I think. Maybe it's that this is the authentic Greek spelling, because you see it spelled differently in other media, but yeah, Hephaestus. He was the blacksmith of the gods in Greek mythology.
So we get to meet him. He's the emotional part of La Habrea, the part that was severed off, and he I'm not sure why he goes away. Like, I guess the challenge between La Habrea and him. And we find out that basically he wants to get Eric Thonios. Does he kidnap him at this point? No.
Yeah. I want to say no. Is it after the next fight?
Yeah, I think it's after.
Yeah, I think it's after the next
fight, we seal the next boss away, right? Or we cure the next boss. Don't we cure the next boss?
I can't remember what we did.
No, I don't think we cured it.
We sealed
think,
her. We sealed her until
yeah.
we did to her what we did to Hesperos. We sealed her away.
Yeah, I think we sealed her away. Yes,
we sealed her away until we could find a way to reverse what happened to her. So we take care of the second boss. I'm losing track of the story here. Piers, do you remember what happened after the second boss? Is that when that's when he gets kidnapped, right?
Yeah, we clear the second boss, and I think Hephaestus comes back up, and he takes Erechthonios, and then it's just La Habrea, Elidibus, and us, and that's when we're told to go basically fight another
keyword, the last keyword, right?
Keyword, yes. Who is like so far gone at this point? There's no way we're going to be able to save her, so we have to go like basically put her out of her misery.
And looking at her, La Habrea was absolutely right. Like, there's the way she's so integrated. She's more tree now than person.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's completely right.
And it was one of those. Oh, I was just gonna say that was that boss which when we defeated, she actually. We find out that she's the one that's been sending out all those messages to us. She was
Crystals,
able to, she was still able to like kind of be herself, even though she was so integrated into this. But yeah, sorry, I'm skipping ahead.
No, it's fine. That's a great point. Like after we defeat her, the last remaining bit of her spirit forms before us and lets us know that she was the one that was trying to alert us. That was the only thing she could do is send out a message. That's literally the only thing she could do, and hoped that the right people would be like, well, okay, that doesn't seem right, and come investigate. And lo and behold, we did. So good job, Elidibus, and good job, La Habrea, coming to check on things. But yeah, at this point, we find out that there's this. We're done with Abyssos. Now we need to go save Erechthonios in Tartaros. I guess that's one of the layers of hell, if I'm not mistaken.
Tartarus, yes. Tartarus is like where all the really evil people go in Greek mythology.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
I should have done my Greek mythology brush up before the show today.
Just play the game Hades, dude. Number one, it's a fantastic video game, and number two, all the Greek mythology you'll ever want is in that game. So
that and Dante's Inferno, I heard, is good.
There you go.
Dante's Inferno is great.
Yeah, there you go.
So, how are we feeling about the story though of, the mother being just pure scientist and doing what she needs to get her science done, and then trying to convey to La Habrea that he should join her on this path, even if it's the expense of her son. Like, I just like, oh my God. This is where we're talking about such a bad mom.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to mention this a little earlier, but we can mention it. I can mention it now. Is that like when La Habrea explains how he and Athena even got together? It seems like it was just like he was like the head scientist, and she was like a scientist, and they just kind of got together, and it just happened. Like there was no like real relationship or romance or anything. Like they just probably just did it to do it, right? And then they had a kid. And these two people are like woefully ill-equipped to be parents because they're just super duper work-minded, and that's kind of not really a good conducive environment for a child to be raised in, right? So, they have this kid, and then like Athena at some point takes the kid into a pandemonium, and La Habrea has to go figure out what's going on. And he meets up with her and finds out that she's doing some crazy experiment stuff to Erechthonios. And yeah, like you said, Athena's like, well, I'm doing all this for the greater good, blah, blah, blah. Like, you should join me. And La Habrea just can't understand. And so she's like, all right, well, let's Vulcan mind meld.
Yes.
That's basically what happens.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, and so they intertwine their spirits and souls together, and that's when he sees just how kind of unhinged Athena is, and how like crazy work-minded and just scientist she is, and they stop their meld, but Athena's like, well, now like the seed of my obsession has been planted in you, and now you will finally like see what it like where I'm coming from. And so that at that point is when La Habrea is like, well, I need to separate this part of myself away, or I'm going to become just like Athena. And that's when he splits himself into Hephaestus, which I'm assuming is his real name. La Habrea is his convocation name, and Hephaestus is probably his real name. And so he splits that part of himself and seals it away. And I thought that was really, really cool what they did there.
Onion?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of pretty much says it all too. I mean, it's one of those things where like you look at the like Piers was saying, these are two parents that are very ill-equipped to take care of their child. And one is obviously extremely manipulative to the point where the child believes that he is being loved and cared for, when realistically all it is you guys seen Halo, the TV series or the Amazon series or whatever?
I've heard about it.
I have heard.
So what's her face? I forget the name of the scientist lady. She basically, they go out and adopt all these children and essentially kidnap them from their families, basically. And they raise them, and these kids think that they're being cared for, when in reality what's going on is they're just doing these experiments on them to try and make the best super soldier and everything, so that way they can get some sort of glory and power within, their intergalactic military, basically. And so it basically, that's kind of what Eric Thonios' mother's doing, is she's got this child, except she doesn't have to actually go out and kidnap it or anything, but she's got this child and she just wants to do what she thinks is best for their people, but she's going about it all the wrong way, basically. And I'm kind of wondering though if these experiments that she's working on is the same kind of is like an early version of what La Habrea uses to swap to different bodies. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on the lore on that one, but it seems, because like they're basically merging bodies is what they're doing. So like, is this like an early adoption of that thing that he does? And maybe at some point, maybe he does take in that crystal that's got his separated self, merge it in with himself, become that person, and then also take on that
obsession, that Athena part of him. Maybe that's what makes him so unhinged in 2.0 and 3.0, right? Like that. That's I like both theories, that that's the case, or that Eric Thonios does become the new La Habrea and then becomes the one that we see. Like, I think either one could be equally as plausible. So
that's some good thoughts. I will consider it.
Take it into
consideration. Yes.
Dismissed. Deleted. Anyways, so yeah, I thought it's such a crazy, messed up situation, but we finally beat Hephaestus. We seal away him in a crystal again, and La Habrea says at this point that he's gonna now just destroy this. We don't actually see that happen. So, your theory could come to pass, or he comes to realize, if I destroy this crystal, I also destroy myself. Who knows? We'll find out in the next patch of the series. But once that's all done,
Dragon Ball Z.
What's that?
Yeah,
the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
in unfortunately like 8 months, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately. So please look forward to it. So at this point, though, we're done in Abyssos. We think that everything's cleaned up. And we go back to the source. We go back to Labyrinthos. And we try to find out what's going on there, and find out that the chief is not back yet. He's now missing. No one knows where he is. He was supposed to go to Azys Law with this crystal that he found. Never made it there. But there is a disturbing development down the Atishoscope. So we head down there. And we see pandemonium in the Ethereal Sea. It's Castlevania. It's Castlevania down in the Ethereal Sea, just popping out of nowhere. Like the Konami crossover continues. We had Dracula first. Now we got the castle. This is awesome.
It is pretty funny that you mentioned that, because like I kind of forgot that in Castlevania, like literally Dracula just moves his castle around to places. Like it just shows up. Like I was like, oh, it kind of looks like the castle from Dracula or from Castlevania, but no, I'm thinking more about it. It's like, okay, that actually it does make sense. He's just like taking it and plopping it right down in the ethereal sea, right?
Yeah, he can move it. He can reshape it however he wants. It's crazy. We're gonna see a whole new Labyrinthos eventually. Maybe. Because you're gonna have everything just like shifting. He's gonna move. They're gonna move pandemonium everywhere. We're gonna see it in freaking Limsa Laminza at some point, probably.
There you go.
Now here's another theory. Thread to maybe pull on your nuggets. The parallels between Charlayan and the Asians just are so many.
That's true.
Like Elpis is to Labyrinthos. Like the research, and yes, the purpose of Labyrinthos is to get the right animals and for trip to the moon and all that fun stuff. But the fact that they're so devoted to their research and their science, and they cut themselves away. Elpis itself, not the whole Asian ancient people, but Elpis itself kind of cut off from the rest. It makes me wonder if Labyrinthos is, in the spot in the world where Elpis used to be, and Pandemonium is showing up exactly where it was previously, underneath Elpis, underneath Labyrinthos. Like the parallels are just like jumbling in my mind that's maybe what's going on right now.
That's an interesting theory, actually. Yeah.
That's actually very good. And what if everything we're doing right now with Pandemonium is basically changing the future?
Oh, I don't want to go into like time travel bullshit. Like I'm more happy with the Castlevania theory than I am a freaking time travel theory at this point. Like going back to Elpis, like already, like because Elidibus used his power to send us back, but now this portal's just open for us to go to Elpis and come back and Pandemonium and whatever. So I'm like, I'm enough with the time travel. I'm more accepting of Castlevania and it just appearing out of nothing because of powers in Pandemonium already. So.
It shows up again every 100 years.
Yes.
That'd be dope.
Yes.
So what are your guys' theories? Let's start with you, Piers. What is your theory of why the castle's back?
I honestly have no idea. I have no idea. Athena has to be doing something. Athena still has to be alive somewhere, doing something. I think that's probably going to be maybe the final boss of the entire raid series.
Probably.
Is
that's
something,
a good bet.
Something with Athena. So I don't know what she could possibly be doing to make it appear in the ethereal sea. So your guess is as good as mine, man. I don't have any real solid concrete theory I could come up with at this point. But
and it maybe
I'm excited to see.
I'm sure it is Athena is the last boss, and she's gonna have some really messed up form. But maybe this also has something to do with because the chief found the crystal. Maybe that crystal is Athena. Maybe that crystal is the other half of the asbestos, the herpes version of La Habrea.
Yes.
Hephaestus. Maybe that crystal is the Hephaestus. And La Habrea just never blew it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many unanswered questions. Onion, where do you kind of want to see this go? Where, if you had to take a guess, throw a wild theory out there.
So the thing is, we never actually saw how
Athena died.
Well, I mean, I think that was kind of hinted at, the fact that they were sharing their memories, basically something along the lines of absorbing her in order to see her memories. I think I may have been misreading that, but we never actually saw how Hephaestus actually came back. And what if, in that case, there was a separate shard created with her involved? I mean, again, I could have missed something in there too, but yeah, I mean, it very well could be that she. So when the captain goes out to locate this other thing, what if he unintentionally freed her, and that's why the whole thing is suddenly popping up right after, we get done with our adventure. So I'm kind of thinking that's kind of where we're going. I'm kind of having to agree with you guys about, having, Athena as the final boss there, or at least one of the final bosses.
One of the bosses, yeah, for sure.
Do we know who the first crystal is that we found? Was it just a researcher sending out an SOS and that's what we found?
It had to have been the tree lady, right? I think that it was the tree lady that sent the SOS out that we found in the source, and that's why we even went back to Elpis to begin with, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's what that was.
That makes sense.
But there was another one that was found by the captain, right? And then he went, and he's the one that disappeared.
Yes.
So maybe,
and we don't know what that crystal is
or something. Yeah, we don't know what that one is.
That could be Hephaestus. That could be Athena.
Yeah.
And he messing with Athena's crystal, why it's just out, not sealed away in pandemonium, out and about and able to be found, is another story. Hopefully they explain that. But maybe that's Athena's. He messes around with it, and that breaks her free, and she brings back pandemonium to finish her work.
Could be.
Yeah.
More test subjects.
Exactly, dude. Exactly.
All right, that is going to wrap up our main quest number 2. We want to hear from you folks now. What did you think of Abyssos? The story in general, is La Habrea a good daddy for saving his son from such horrors? Athena's a bad mom, and if you say otherwise, you're just a bad person. Drop a comment down below. Let us know what you think. All right, with that done, let's move on to our final main quest. I hear there is an extra quest after the MSQ is done that gives a lot more backstory. What can you tell us about it? And do you hope that Final Fantasy XIV does more of this in the future? All right, folks, we're going to start with Mr. Onion Knight because I know he just finished the quest, so it's fresh on his mind. What did you think about the side quest involving our little Voidsent Hecti friends?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a good way of kind of giving you a glimpse to how they all kind of came to power, having backstory of Barbariccia, kind of I guess
even before they were Voidsent, right?
Yeah, like the fact that she was trapped in like this house, like her father wouldn't let her leave until one day she had enough. He killed her friends and everything, so she kills him. It was just that it was such a turn, and it kind of makes sense that at that moment after she picked up that axe and killed him, that she goes off to do battle. I was just like, okay, cool. All right. I don't see where the hair comes into it, but
Well, they talked about that because she was secluded, that being beautiful, taking care of her long flowing hair, that was part of her being trapped, and she her handmaiden and all that fun stuff. So yeah, it was slightly touched on.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Although I didn't see it coming that Scarmiglione was a cat boy.
Yeah, I did not see it. Yeah,
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, you can see Barbariccia being a female Elizin, like that makes sense.
Yeah,
but male Makote for Scarmiglione is fascinating to me that they chose that. But whatever, I'm down.
All right, since we're talking about races, Cognazzo's got to be a Rogadin, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and Rubicante is Ara.
Okay, I'm down with that.
You down with that? What about you? Are you down with those theories?
Yeah, sure.
LOL. I mean, there's no bunny boys or bunny girls or Hrothgar going to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's the Hrothgar? Which one's the Hrothgar?
I mean, they both could be. I mean, who knows? Maybe that'd be how we get introduced to female Hrothgar.
Sure.
Oh, wow. Big bold claim. Big bold claim. Okay, I was absolutely shocked when he's like, yeah, I found your friends and I fed them to the fishes. Like, he straight up murdered her friends to keep her basically a prisoner. Like, that guy was a total piece of shit.
Oh,
Not
100%.
gonna lie.
Yeah, he deserved the axe, bro. 100%.
Yeah, I did not feel bad for him. I'm like, glad he got what he got. But then she like turned to like, damn, this patch has so many bad dads. Like,
Sure
It's the
does.
patch of bad dads.
it's
Yeah.
the expansion of bad dads. Even Farshino, like, give me
Yeah.
Christmas, dude.
He was at first, but he was doing he did everything for his kids though. Like he had the best
Keeping things
intentions.
secret. He had to keep things secret.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, she hacks him like several times. We didn't see it, of course, but we heard the chunky, clunk, clunk. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And then she goes and becomes a soldier, because that's what you do when you become free and become, it's like, hey, I murdered someone, that felt good, let's do that some more, right?
I mean, sure. To me, it's more like her whole life was this like sheltered, be good, be pure kind of thing, and like when she murdered her dad, which you do see the axe buried in the guy's head, by the way. Like I'm surprised they showed that.
Little
She just probably wanted to go completely against her nature, and that whole pure, the perfect little thing. She just wanted to completely throw that to the wind and be like, you know what? I'm going to do the opposite of what my parents wanted me to be, and that's why she became that like soldier on the battlefield. And I'm down with that. I appreciate that kind of like those parallels to each other, right? So,
Onion, how do you feel about the second part of Barbaricha's story, where she becomes a pure void scent, looking to consume and realizing she's all alone, so she's back to being a prisoner yet again, all alone on her domain, just like she was in the beginning?
That kind of leads me to that kind of led me to my thoughts about the Zero's little domain, because you can see in there that like she's basically this powerful void scent who somehow managed to just gain power all on her own, because I guess I don't remember the specifics on it, but it was like her subjects basically adored her, and it's almost like they were almost willing to be sacrificed to provide her with the Aether, and just the fact that she could eventually run out of that source of obtaining power.
This is where my theory about the ecosystem, like at some point, like, isn't there going to be one conglomerate of Aether there? That's it, and then that's the end of it. Like, there's nothing else to do.
That 100% happened to Barbaricha. Like that is exactly what happened. So.
Yeah, and then eventually, the Dark Knight guy,
Night clad in darkness.
Yeah, and we all know who it is. He
I'm
shows
so glad
up.
They said his name in this patch.
Yeah.
He just throws his Aether at her and says, "Here you go," and gives her that extra power. And I'm just like, oh, well then. So he's just willing to just give out this enormous amount of power that he already has accrued to people just to be able to build his army. And like and you can see from like through the two separate stories that we get from these characters that he sees something special in these void scent. See, he sees something special in them, and he's willing to help them achieve their goals if it ultimately helps him achieve his. So seeing that part, it helps me understand how someone who wasn't one of the Memoriat rose to the power that she has, because they were saying that anyone that was a normal everyday person became just the normal void scent, and then the Memoriats were the ones with the most power, which also kind of leads me to wonder if Golbez was a Memoriat, and if somehow maybe he was a high ranking one for all we know.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting. It also makes me wonder if like Cloud of Darkness and Skathak were also Memoriats too, because they were so powerful. So
I mean, Skathak was so powerful that she was basically a battery for a roving Void Ark. It was crazy.
Yeah. So
I love Void Ark.
Diabolos, is he a Memoriat?
Yeah, no Diabolos too. Yeah.
Good times.
So
think it's safe to say that.
So she uses her newfound power, and her biggest wish, and this is where we find out that she can move her domain where everyone else is fixed. She has the power to move her domain wherever she sees fit, which Golbez, of course, finds probably going to be useful, that we can, have a mobile base. Yeah, that'd probably be good,
He
right?
found it useful and unique. He found it to be something that, other Void Sent hadn't thought of before.
Yeah. He's collecting good generals. Scarmiglion's is actually really tragic. Like, I feel more tragic than Barbaricha's. Like,
It can be. I mean, I think Scarmiglione is a bigger piece of shit, but that's just me.
I mean,
I guess.
Faced in war and total annihilation, yeah, you're an officer, but then you always have this, I gotta live, right? Like, doesn't everyone have that? I need to live. I need to find a way to live.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
got a good point. But that's what a tactical retreat's for, not just letting everybody else die while you hide.
Yeah, I mean, this was the captain. Captains are supposed to go down with their ship, right? At least in the Navy kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that he was willing to let all of his
sacrifice everyone else, while he lives,
so he can live, is pretty screwed up. So, like, I was completely with the Memoriat who drew his sword and cut him down and was like, I only knocked it. No, yeah. I know he knocked him down. He knocked him out and was like, literally bury this guy alive with his with his dead comrades.
I felt that was a little messed up. Like, you bury someone alive, dude. That's messed up.
It's pretty metal, but I guess this guy had that much righteous indignation, and he was like, let this guy suffer.
It was a very Viking way to go out, I think, but like you said, he was just knocked unconscious. I thought that was kind of silly, being knocked unconscious by a sword, but hey, what?
He straight up sliced him, and then he was like, oh, I just knocked him out. And that's just that's just fantasy stuff you gotta roll your eyes at and be like, yeah, okay, you knocked him out.
Use the flat end of the blade.
Yeah,
exactly.
Hit him in the head with the flat of the blade. There you go. But apparently, being buried alive and being buried pretty deep, as the Hectai would say, decided to claw his way out. So he does have a will to live.
Yeah.
Apparently that whole experience, though, left him pretty mangled up and effed up. But he lived. He clawed himself back out, started roaming the land, and then the Contra Memoria pretty much ended, and the world turned to crap. And he became a what's the word? A coward. A Void Sent coward,
He did, yeah. He was not a very strong Void Sent, or very particularly anything. He was
ambitious,
yeah. He just kind of just survived, and by picking off the weaker ones, which is a total Void Sent thing to do. So,
it was definitely consistent with the character.
Yeah.
But then Golbez appears after he runs away from a strong Void Sent and says, "Why did you run away? Here, let me give you a little bit more aether." And come to find out that all this, feeding off of the weak that he's been doing for however long has really made him a super powerful Void Sent. And we now, of course, know that he also has the power to resurrect Void Sent around him quicker than normal. And again, just like Barbaricha, Golbez is finding a strong Void Sent with unique abilities that he can use in his army. This is fascinating side story stuff.
It is.
Are you guys hoping that they do more of this? They laid the foundation that they're going to do more with Cognazo and Rubicante. So I'm excited to see more of this expanded storyline. But I need more minions, so hopefully we get Rubicante, Cognazo.
You don't need more.
Yes, I do. Yeah, 380 is not enough. I do have Scarmiglione, though.
You did? You were able to get Scarmiglione?
Yeah, Fredo gave it to me.
Oh, nice. I think I saw it drop, but I lost it.
Oh, Satch.
I know.
Honestly, they're going to do more on this because, it ends on kind of a cliffhanger there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
What I found interesting about that Scarmiglione, Miglione, whatever, is he had that power.
Yes.
Basically, he was just given like a sliver that acted kind of like a placebo.
That's
to
true.
kind of give him that like
vaccine booster
courage. Yeah, so like once he had that courage and thought, oh, I've got extra power now I can defeat this thing, and he defeated it. When Golbez just goes, yeah, dude, I didn't really give you anything. You had it all along. That kind of shows like that, Scarmillion's character, like, is just, he is that cowardly whatever, but if he's manipulated enough, he can actually do the things that, he sets his mind to. And I kind of got that vibe from him earlier in the patch, when we were doing the Troya stuff. Like he definitely seemed like the, I'm gonna hide around the corner type guy.
Yeah.
He does at one point too. He's sitting there hiding up in the air, and we just hear him kind of make a noise. But yeah, like he's gonna be a pain in our ass for a good time, I believe, for a little while. I know he's in a crystal right now, but I have a feeling he's going to return and
Back.
be a major big.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a full Four Fiends fight, and I'm hoping that's not the end of it, because I really like all these Four Fiend characters. Even in Final Fantasy IV, Barbaricia did not get a lot of screen time. It was, she appeared and we fought her, and that was it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, is there anything in 4 that would about her hair, at all, or is it just the thing that they added in 14, that she's obsessed with her hair?
I mean, she not necessarily obsessed by the hair, but some people think that the tornado phase that she gets into is her hair.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's probably where that leads credence, and I appreciate, when she does tornado to switch phases, and then goes into Bayonetta mode. So I thought that was a really cool nod to that too. So any other thoughts about the side story, gentlemen?
I number one, it's not signposted at all. You have to go find the quest by yourself.
I know, right?
Okay. In the cutscene, right before you finish the MSQ, you do see this guard go off after this little tiny heck dies, dude, and you're like, well, what the hell's that about? And so I guess if you thought about it enough, you're like, okay, let me go find out what that guy's doing, and then you get the quest. But it's not signposted at all. I do appreciate that it's not necessary. They could have put this in as an MSQ thing, and I wouldn't have blinked twice at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that they're adding quests that will allow you to expand your knowledge on these characters, but it's not necessary. It's only if you really are interested in doing it. So I hope they do add more of that stuff in the future, and I'm all for it, 100%.
I didn't even know it existed until I saw the show notes. So I was like, oh, I gotta do that real quick.
Here's the thought for you guys on that then. Because we're in Heaven's Ward and up through Shadowbringers, these trials have all been part of a separate path of story. Because it's not part of the MSQ, this is normal story that we would have gotten as part of trial story. Like when you think back to the Four Lords, we were always hearing about Tenzin and having little flashbacks about Tenzin. We saw backstory about the Warring Triad and little flashbacks about that. So maybe this is story that we would have normally gotten as part of those trial series stories, but now that doesn't fit in the MSQ, as it were. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not strict to the MSQ, so they're putting it in there to expand on these characters. Which again, point. I appreciate, because Barbaricia did not get a little screen time in this patch either. No. Right. She came, she's like, I'm gonna get him. She came and she fell. Well, she beat me for 7 hours in Extreme, and then she fell.
Fair.
But yeah, I think it's a good piece of content, and I hope we see more of those side stories, because I love the Four Fiends. They're my favorites. Quadruplets. They're good times. And again, Cognazzo Dungeon Boss, Rubicante Trial Boss, Four Fiends Trial Boss, Golbez.
Okay.
Are we on board?
I don't know if I'm on. I don't know. I would be okay with it, but I still think that they're going to do a Cognazzo solo instance, or solo.
It probably is Cognazzo, Rubicante, Golbez, right?
Yeah. I know you want your 4 fiends. They could somehow add the 4 fiends thing and as like a phase in the Golbez fight, maybe, or something. I don't know. I guess we can see.
I mean, he gets the
That would
control
be
of their
cool.
crystals, and that's part of his powers is using their powers.
Yeah, could be.
Or
And
he
this-
uses them like a summoner.
There you go.
This is
right?
my Iggy.
I summon
Scarmiglione.
Scarmiglione, bam, and he summons a bunch of ads, and it's like God, this would make for an epic freaking ultimate, though, right?
Yes.
Golbez and the
it
4
will.
fiends
It will make a good ultimate. They'll do it at some point.
in 8.0.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that is the end of main quest number 3. We want to hear from you folks now. Did you even know that there was an extra side story? If you didn't, go check it out. The Hecdies are really cute. But if you did, let us know down below with a comment, and we appreciate your time. And with that, that is the end of our show. Onion Knight, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you.
It was fun.
Yeah, dude. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitch at Sir_Onion Knight. Same thing with Twitter. If you want to find me on YouTube, it's just Sir Onion Knight without the underscore.
Gotcha.
I haven't posted anything on YouTube in ages though, so if you want to watch my stuff, you can. But I'm not. I'm not stressing it.
All right, Piers, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me also on Twitch at radio_Piers. You can also find me on YouTube, funny enough, but I only have like clips of ultimate mechanics and stuff on there just so I could show like my raid mates or something. But it's maybe I'll add more there at some point. I think it's LOLDRK. It might be LOLDRK FTW. Yeah, it's one of the two. But yeah, and you can also find me in the game at Piers Harvey on Leviathan. The Primal Data Center, if you want to ever do anything, reach out to me. I'm usually available. I'm in my island sanctuary right now doing nothing. So if you wanted to come hang out, come hang out. And yeah, maybe I'll get a Twitter someday just to promote myself. Smile. But we'll see. Anyway, Tark.
Have you picked
Go ahead.
Have you picked a game and even picked a date?
No, I thought you were going to do that for me. You should or maybe
I did, and you were like,
send me suggestions.
I said
what was the one that you picked for me?
I just said Tales of Rise, and you're like, no, that was
Tales of Rise. Yeah, but that's because I'm already almost through the game. Well, I'll
Okay.
find something else. We'll find something else. We'll talk. But
Okay.
anyway, where can people find you though?
Well, if you want to find me in game, you can find me Tarkoth Solo on Excalibur on the Primal Data Center. You can also find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all at Tarkoth Gaming. And I stream Final Fantasy 14 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday. And then a little bit of alternate adventures on Mondays, currently playing Bloodborne. You can also find me on Ready Check Raideo, Thursdays, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern for the Relic Grind, Final Fantasy 14 Square Enix podcast. And also streaming there Saturday nights, possibly some more on Sunday. We're still ironing out a time. Currently playing Live Alive there, so that is all well and good. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for coming. It has been a pleasure and an honor to share this time with you. Any other last remarks and sayings to say goodbye?
All I can say is that I enjoyed having a guest, and I hope we do it more often because it did make the discussion a lot more interesting. Because
he
you're
hates
boring,
talking to me.
Tark. What can I say?
Jesus.
And I'm boring, and we're both boring. So we just no, I had a good time. Hopefully, we can have you back sometime to have more discussions, even if it did run a little long today. But that's cool. It's a lot of content.
It's story. You got to dive into the story.
Of course you do, dude. Of course.
Yeah, that's basically going to be a mega episode on its own already. Anyway, considering you got like 3 different stories you're kind of looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had fun. It was a good show. I'd be willing to come back anytime. Just let me know. And everybody's giving their in-game name, so I just may as well throw mine out there. Diabolus Notvate. I said that name probably incorrectly, but it's fine.
Your character's name. You pronounce it
my
however the
character.
fuck
you
you
say it
want.
however you want, bro. Exactly. Yeah. That's how. That's canon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's canon. Even if it's, even if my character don't even know how to say it. But yeah, you'll find me on Excalibur. Just moved over there from, my old Aether data center. So, also, we've got the new FC up, Method to the Metal. Yep. So anybody that wants to come over to Excalibur and maybe start leveling a character or just bring, their main over, we're open to anybody who wants to join it.
as we look to save up the money in the Gill to get the next house that will hopefully be on the moon.
Right.
I mean, that's the next
Maybe
housing
the
award, right? The moon?
It's probably not going to happen.
I mean, Piers, the moon, right?
Of course, moon housing. Yes.
I mean, the
Is there a
Upper
joke
made
or
it, right?
something here?
No,
Yeah. Well, from a lore standpoint, yes, of course, there can possibly be some moon housing, but will it ever happen? I just don't know about that one.
All right. Well,
I kind of hope.
until next time, you all take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And remember,
Master Control oversees all on the grid. End of line.